Engage.
I think I figured it out. Okay.
Engage. We are fully engaged. Crystals are loaded.
What's playing? What was that?
That was me testing the sound.
Gotcha.
Sound is good.
Sound test. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good call.
Whew. We back. We got a packed show. What's up? We got Geek Commander in the house. B Rose.
What's
up? How are we doing?
Glad to be back.
Yeah, we're gonna have Mike B's gonna be joining us too. The Museum of Now.
Podcast's always also
Podcast
here.
is always here. She's always here. But man, we got so much to pack in. I was like, we go once a week, and then you think we're gonna have enough, and then we show up here, and it's just like an avalanche. We got Last of Us finale, Ted Lasso premiere, Screen 6, breaking box office Scream records. Then we got the Oscars. Then literally James Gunn just tweeted he's on the way to the Shazam premiere after just dropping that he is going to be directing Superman right after Zack Snyder teases a full circle, released the Snyder cut with a dark side message, a message from the dark side. And that's like totally just even leaving out The Mandalorian and The Bad Batch, which all dropped. I was up till like 4 a.m. watching everything. Brian, you caught up on Mando and Bad Batch? Are you watching?
So I personally am waiting for Mando, which is surprising because it's one of my favorite shows, but I'm kind of holding off on it just a little bit.
Okay.
We wanted to bank a couple before we did because we were also deep in Last of Us and we knew Last of Us was coming up, and I try not to get too many of my favorite shows all at once. So I think we were gonna let like 3 or 4 of them bang up and then just start plowing through them once Last of Us over. And since Last of Us is over now, then I can go ahead and I can dedicate time to 2 shows.
It felt surreal. Like last night, there was no filler shows. It felt surreal that I'm watching Ted Lasso right before The Mandalorian after just coming off The Last of Us. Is this unprecedented times that we have all these blockbuster shows actually playing at the same time? There's always one, and then you have other shows.
It was better when there was just Incredible Hulk and Dukes of Hazzard. That was it. Those were the only 2 options.
Well, I've got one that I'm going to talk to you about as well too. I didn't even talk to you about this ahead of time. I've got another show that we just finished that is fantastic, and it's one of those everyone needs to be kind of watching this kind of moments.
Really?
What is this show? What show?
So my wife and I just discovered, we saw a trailer for it, and we're like, oh, that looks interesting. If you haven't seen it yet, on I believe it's on Peacock. Yeah, Peacock. Poker Face.
Poker Face is great.
Poker Face is fantastic. We just finished it, and I've loved every single episode of it.
Yeah, it's probably one of my favorite new shows. It's actually watchable. I love it. I love a show that doesn't pressure me to watch the next episode immediately.
Yeah, it's really it's got a nice little standalone feel to it. It's very much like watching, like House or Monk or anything like that. They do tie in a overarching story, but each is its own little standalone episode, so it's nice.
That's a good call, Monk. That's the way you were comparing it to, right, Mario? When you just have the standalone, beginning, middle, and end is done in a week, and you just come in for another adventure.
I think Natasha Lyonne's doing like a Columbo gimmick, and even if you watch Poker Face and fall asleep, Peacock will feed you Columbo episodes right after, and it's just like sort of like detective. What Columbo's gimmick is, he pretends to not know what's going on, but he always knows what's going on.
Oh yeah, do the one more thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice too because with Ryan Johnson being on it, you can kind of see the kind of knives out threads that are in there as well too. They kind of sew those here and there. But in terms of like the story, it's really nice. Each episode being self-contained, but also tying into her kind of character and everything like that, and building it as she goes from episode to episode.
Is Charlie a superhero? Do we think she has a kind of a superpower? She's kind of a mutant.
I felt like that's what they were starting to hint to.
You know this. You know the gimmick, right? You know what her thing is, Jeff?
She reads your poker face, right?
No, she can tell if you're lying.
Just by hearing you.
Her one skill, her one thing that she can do, she can tell whether or not you're lying.
That is some da-na-na-na-na-na-na. That is a pretty cool power to have.
So does that make her a superhero officially?
I feel like it does. I feel like that would be really handy. So I'm assuming she does, like, is she popo, or does she do like interrogations?
So kind of neither. So basically, she finds herself after the first episode. I'm not going to spoil too much because it is worth watching. But she basically finds herself on the run, and she's almost like it's like a road trip, and she's going from place to place, and she's finding herself in these situations every stop where her talent comes in handy and also gets her into trouble. And so it's each episode is ties into a mystery and how she can use that power to help solve it. Sometimes successfully, sometimes not. It kind of just depends on the episode. But each one is its own kind of differing story. And it's nice that every episode isn't the same.
And she's like Scooby-Doo come to life, honestly. Yeah. Because every episode, she knows immediately if there's someone's lying. And then it's not like, aha, I knew you did it the whole time. It's just kind of like someone will tell her something and they'll be lying. And says, why are you lying about that?
She's pretty magnetic. I mean, I loved her in Russian Doll.
I didn't see Russian Doll, but I imagine.
I didn't see season 2 yet, but it was really one. But there's just something about her, again, that just pulls you in. Is that Peacock's #1 show? It has to be.
It has to be, because
I don't even know of any other shows that they've really been pushing.
Everyone's watching it.
Yeah, it's one of the first like big original shows they've got, because they have Parks and Rec, they have The Office and all the old classics, but it's one of the first big heavy hitter pushes that they've done, with it having Ryan Johnson's name attached to it, and it's got a fantastic cast, which like the cast for every episode is stacked. There's like an all-star in every single episode, and you're like, where did they come from? How did they get these people in this show? And you can just, once you watch the show, you can kind of see that just the writing itself is kind of what got them in there, but you can also see Ryan Johnson's style. Even though he's not doing the directing of the episodes and everything, you can kind of see as a producer, he's got kind of his little threads in there. And so I think having his name is what kind of brought in a lot of the cast that they were able to bring in.
And I like that gimmick. I feel like that's a gimmick that hasn't been around for a while, on these bringing in these bigger name actors just for one encapsulated show, right? That it's not committing to weeks of it. We're just like, hey, we're just going to come in here and do a couple days worth of work. This will be your episode. Very much like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, right?
We're regressing back into old Hollywood, aren't we?
Yeah, it does feel like that.
Because it's just like, why wouldn't you do a drop on one episode of a show? Don't commit to a full show, but sure, I'll take a paycheck to come be on one episode of Ryan Johnson's show. Why not?
Yeah.
That's a pretty good gig.
So
and they've got a stack. I don't know how. There's a lot of people in the show throughout the season. It's a really enjoyable show, and like I recommend it to anyone who's kind of like got any kind of fatigue. If you've got binge fatigue, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, because this isn't a binging show, right?
You can binge it if you want.
Yeah, but
you don't have to binge it.
It doesn't really set itself up as a binge show. It's not one of those ones where each episode is like a cliffhanger going into the next thing. It really is like you can watch an episode and be done and just wait until the next one comes on. It's just like for us, my wife and I, we were watching it every week because that's just how good it is.
Yeah.
It was good enough to where it didn't matter what happened last week. We just wanted to see what the next story was going to be.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like an anthology in a way where like you can see like if every episode was directed by someone different, because she's really her and Benjamin Bratt are really the only two people who pop up in multiple episodes. And so each episode is completely different cast, completely different location, with, just other than the mystery kind of genre tying it in, it's completely different.
And there's like a structure to it that's unique. It's structured like you see the crime and then it goes backwards in time.
And Tarantino's back.
You see how Charlie, the main character, Natasha Lyonne, was involved with the crime, and then she solves the crime.
Oh man, that sounds fun. I miss those like you're right. I miss those types of show, Murder She Wrote or Heart to Heart, we still think about these shows and just for their catchiness of their themes or whatever, but we're still talking about those shows, but we don't remember the story threads, right? Like you said, maybe it is binge fatigue. Maybe people are like, I need a break. I need to not commit to something every week just to be able to put it on whenever I want.
Well, I think both formats are everyone's tired of. I think everyone's tired of binging, and also everyone's tired of week to week. Because that's why Disney's doing that whole pods thing now. They're splitting it up into mini seasons.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think you're right. I'm okay with like there's just like the 3. I feel like Prime did that first, right? Like whenever they release The Boys, they'll just drop 3. Then they'll do
like the first 3 at the top of the season or something.
What if it would just be a surprise every week? Like how many we want to drop this week? Let's try 2. Want to do 4? Let's just do 1.
I'm all for that.
Especially they have to go back and watch and maybe do some quality controls. Like, okay, this one needs a stronger finish, so let's drop a couple. So we'll pop a can for Natasha Lyonne, Poker Face.
Well, it was funny too because we were watching that show and we saw that's why she pops up in Knives Out, the Glass Onion. Because in the beginning, when Blanc's in his little tub doing his Among Us, and you've got Angela Lansbury and Stephen Sondheim, and then Natasha Lyonne's there, and I remember watching it, I'm like, what was that about? And then, like, literally, as soon as that movie's over with, we start seeing ads for the new Poker Face show with her in it, and I was like, oh, that's kind of nice.
It was pushing. It was like, I think I watched Sick, and it was like everything I watched on Peacock, it was, hey, by the way, we got this show coming. And that really does work. I mean, it works. Apple's doing a really good job with that. I mean, one of my favorite shows right now is Shrinking, and I would never have watched Shrinking, but I just happened to be watching Servant, and it served me up Shrinking, and now it's served up the next show that is coming up. So they're doing a really good job to like bring you in. You need those strategies. We need to have those little vignettes, as they called in pro wrestling. It's just like, we got to show you for a couple weeks what's coming to prepare you. So that's good stuff. Yeah, JJ said, give me back the Monster of the Week structure.
What's up, JJ?
Yeah. And Brian, we know you're a huge fan of Buffy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously although they had a lot of encapsulated stories in there too, they mixed it up really well. They'll have the long story string coming across 2 shows, right? Because I actually, weirdly enough, watched Angel more than I watched Buffy.
Yeah. It was not like when it first started, Buffy was very much Monster of the Week. And then once you started getting into the further seasons, you started seeing the more overarching kind of arc across the whole season. And same thing with Angel. Angel started off very Monster of the Week as well, too, and then kind of graduated into that. I'm the same way, though. Like, Buffy is my favorite show, but I think that Angel is the better show.
Oh, interesting.
Because I think Buffy was my kind of intro. I think I have a more fondness for that. And I would say Buffy is probably still the better show. Angel had more episodes that I thought were better.
Yeah.
There are some really fantastically done episodes of Angel that I rank even higher than Buffy, but Buffy overall is probably my favorite show, if I'm going to be honest.
Well, you know, when the show takes a couple of years to find their footing and then you go back and watch those first episodes, I think Angel probably had the benefit of the Buffy momentum, and they already kind of worked all those quirks out, so you got it in their prime. You know, you got Angel in the prime. You didn't have the awkward teenage stage of the show.
Well, that's what was funny too, is like specifically with Buffy and Angel, you know, I didn't watch it when it aired because that's just not what I was into, and I was the same age as them. I graduated 2000 and Buffy graduates 99, so I'm really in that age, but I wasn't watching TV or anything then. And so I didn't discover Buffy until literally the show had ended and someone introduced me to it. So I had watched all those, watched literally all 7 seasons of Buffy and the first 4 seasons of Angel, finished them right as the 5th season of Angel aired, because the 5th season of Angel was right after Buffy had ended.
Oh, right.
So I got to watch that season live, which is the best season out of both shows, and then they canceled it. So I was so just furious because I had binged through 13 seasons of episodes and then had to wait week to week and then just got canceled on me. So that was just, ugh.
The struggle was real back then. There's so many people that don't know that feeling. We talked about this before with the Lost effect. Like, you realize how many years I had to wait for what you just decide is like Netflix will ask you if you're still watching. But no, we waited years to get to that, which gives you a whole different perspective. But
that's what I'm saying. I think the streaming networks are going to have to step away from that model. People are not going to wait years.
No
one's going to wait years for the second part of a show.
No.
That's what they'd call a bad user experience. You watch the entire season of a show in a day and then wait years for the next one.
Exactly. And you called it. You're right. It's old Hollywood, but now instead of studios, it's streaming services are the new old studios that are dominating and getting the first look deals and stuff. So.
Mel Brooks needs to do a streaming movie.
Are you watching History of the World Part 2?
No, I haven't.
I'm about to. I've been saving it. I'm gonna make that jump here.
Yeah, I'm 3 in. There's as expected. There's some misses, but the ones that hit really well. But the ones that miss really well too. It's the Babe Ruth effect, either a home run or a strikeout. There's no in between. So, but we won't spoil on that. But speaking of home runs, grand slams, let's jump into The Last of Us. The season finale just dropped as we are recording this a couple of days ago. And B Rose, you told us how excited you are on the show, so I'm gonna let you start us off on how you feel a few days after that season finale.
So we watched it night of, obviously, and I've watched it twice since then. I really think, I know that a lot of people are being kind of, just overly praising it. But I really do think this is going to end up being the best show of the year. And honestly, it's probably going to be, if they can continue this further, it's probably going to be a top 10 show for me all time. Because I had high expectations, which I try to avoid because usually when you have those high expectations, it usually never fulfills that. So I was really cautious, but it's still The Last of Us, and I couldn't help but get excited about it. And the show just blew it away.
It was cinematic, right? Which is really important for that small screen experience to feel like this could be a movie. So it has that. It had the benefit of right after that. I think people were nervous because there's people who didn't play the game that still know that there was only 2 games. And then you're like, okay, so was this one whole game and then the next season is just going to be the next game? And I don't know if that's true or not, but you played the game. And then they announced that they're going to find a way to break game number 2 into 2 seasons to get at least 3 seasons. So how many seasons can they get out of this content?
So there is the second game, and they've said, with the second game, it's not just going to be 1 season. It's most likely going to be 2. It could even be 3. They really have the ability to stretch it they want to with how dense the story for part 2 is. And honestly, I've said it before, and they haven't really said anything concrete. I wouldn't be surprised if they pull a little ace out of their sleeve and next season doesn't even deal with the second game. If they do an in-between, because there is a time jump in between the 2 games. And people have been freaking out about, with Bella Ramsey being so young, can she play someone that old since she still looks so young? And so I still think doing a second season that kind of fills in the gaps between that 5-year period would be a smart thing to do. But I don't know what they're going to do. But the Last of Us Part 2 is such a dense game that they can easily pull a couple of seasons, if not more, out of that, because there's so much story, there's so much meat on the bone that they can keep going back to, especially if it's well done. And everything from this season has kind of shown that they took a large game, because the first game is fairly long, and there's a lot of stuff that they left out, but they knew the important moments they had to have, and they even filled it in. But they filled in, the episode with Riley is a DLC for the first game, so it's not even part of the main campaign of the first game.
Yeah, and is that the mall episode?
Yeah. And so that's a whole separate DLC that they did for the game, and they brought it into an episode. There's a lot of things that they brought in that weren't in the games, like learning about Ellie's mother and stuff like that. And so they've shown that they're adept at basically stretching or condensing how they need to. So I have no problem with them making more than 1 season out of the second game, but just because of how much is in it.
Is in there. But Mario, you want to throw the spoiler warning up there? Because I gotta ask B Rose something that's really important. There's that spoiler
you're
warning.
clear.
We are clear. So
Internet, we're clear now.
So it was a big news was they never announced how she became immune to the cordyceps in the game, but they did in the show. They gave her the blade effect, right? She was giving birth and they were fighting. So that's completely new to the game as well, right? Was that never announced in either game?
Not really. At least not that I remember ever seeing it. That was one of the nice things that I liked about the show, is them kind of filling in some of the empty gaps in regards to things like that, and also like to how Marlene knows Ellie, because it's a little different than it is in the game. And so I'm interested to see how they're going to take that with the whole, because that's one of the, you've watched the show, right? Okay, so spoiler alert for everybody. That was one of my big, not really a point of contention, but something I've been discussing with a lot of people is, the idea that the cure that they're going to do is she was infected when she was being born, and that she basically has a form of cordyceps inside her that makes her where the other cordyceps don't recognize her.
Yeah.
But we also, and that's kind of the logistic of why they're going to perform this surgery and essentially kill her, is because that's a likely way of possibly building the antibodies for the infection. And so, but we watched in episode 2 when Joel, Tess, and Ellie go up into the museum and they're attacked by the first time we see the clickers. We see that clicker go after Ellie. It lunges after her and it bites her, because they show that, if it had to be someone, at least it was me, because she got bit. So I'm not even 100% sold on that being what's keeping her immune. So I'm hoping that they'll elaborate on that more, but we don't even know that for 100% sure. That's what we're being told by Marlene, by her doctor, and they don't even know that it's that. That's just their kind of...
Oh, I see what you're saying. So that could be a swerve.
It could be a swerve, because they don't know what's happened. They haven't seen the journey that Joel and Ellie went on. And so they don't have all that background information, and possibly they could have if they hadn't just knocked Joel out and shoved her into surgery.
Man, can you imagine? Then you find out a couple seasons later, and that'll justify Joel's reaction of like basically taking everybody out to save her if they were going to do this, and then they were wrong. Like somehow you find out along the way, no, they were wrong. You didn't have to cut in your brain. They could be like bones and butchers. Well, like always looking to cut into her brain.
Brian, you played the game, right? So can I ask a question? Was the scene of Ellie trying to mix her blood with the kid's blood also in the game?
Not that I remember. That's the only issue I've had with the show, is that it's been so long since I've played the first game.
Yeah.
That I was trying to go back through and remember. If she does do it, she doesn't do it that way. The whole her revealing herself to be immune to Sam does not happen in the game, I believe.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like a different change that they made.
Gotcha.
Someone else may say that I was wrong.
I think I watched the finale and all the episodes. I think the whole thing was really good overall. I liked it a lot. It's great. And I think it suffers from people kind of knowing the story. I don't have like the most unobscured view of it, because I could help myself. I looked up the cutscenes after the pilot. I watched the cutscenes to know what's going on. And I thought it was great. And I think kind of like maybe I spoiled it for myself, but I wonder what the average person who didn't bother to look up the game or didn't care really felt about it, And I feel just the point I was going to make was when she tries to mix her blood with the kid, that's the payoff at the end when it's not when they're going to do surgery on her and she's going to die. Because it's like she thought it was so simple. It was just going to be, I'm going to mix my blood with some fucking whatever, put it in some boiling water, give it to folks, and that'll be a cure. It's like, no, we're going to cut your head open and eat your brain.
Yeah, and that's also her being a 14-year-old girl, not knowing. I mean, she's been in a school that's been run by Fedra. It's not like they're teaching the same things that they teach us,
right,
in an alternate reality like this. And so, both her and Joel really have no idea what getting this cure is going to be. Because if you think about it, in the beginning, he doesn't really care about her, but he slowly, throughout the season starts opening up and starts caring for her. But if at any moment he rationally thought, they're going to cut into her and kill her to find this cure, they never would have made it there. He would have found some way up. We can't go any further. This is as far as we can go, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So neither one of them really understand what's going to happen for different reasons, and so that's why whenever she tried mixing her blood with Sam's, it's kind of a you get it. That's at 14 years old. That's a logical thing to think that you might be able to, as long as you mix the blood, that could work. And I think that was one of the interesting things too. And they
we need your brain, and we need to cut your brain out.
Exactly. Like part of me would be like, do you not want to run some blood work first, or maybe try some skin grafts or something like that?
Dan O'Bannon was coming up with ideas over there.
Exactly. And so
we need your entire brain.
That's why I'm be interested to see how if they do address it, or if they don't, how they'll address what exactly it is, or if they'll just leave it ambiguous to where you don't ever find out.
I think you're right. I think the swerve is going to be more important, because I remember when you were pitching us this show and you were talking about how much Joel was caring for Ellie, and every episode I was watching, I was like, man, maybe Brian missed. Maybe it's different in the game, because it doesn't seem like he cares. And man, it was just like a slow clicking roller coaster, and then it hit that top, and hitting that top was the weird pedophilia cannibal, and when he called it baby girl, and then that was it. And then you saw that, like, all of a sudden he has a reason to live again, and then you find out about the suicide attempt. But then he cared for her a lot, because he basically
and I think
wiped everybody out.
And that's what I'm saying. I think the writing on the show is really good, and I think it's a little bit obscured by the fact that everybody kind of knows the story. So I think you're right. Like, later, after we've kind of like looked back on it, we're gonna be like, oh, that's really good. Like, the writing is really good on this show.
And they did a good job of really sowing some seeds for the changes that they made in the game and whatnot. Part of the thing with the game and the show as well too is it's a slow build, and you see these moments start chipping away. And really, what does it they say in the show that it wasn't time, and it's not time that basically allowed him to, be in that way with her. It's a matter of the time, but it's more the journey they've had. It's the constant him saving her and then her saving him.
Right.
That softens those cracks a little bit, and that's what allows him to kind of get to that moment to where he can really feel that way for her. Instead of seeing more of it, because you see it in, I think it's episode 6 when they go into the city. You can see the kind of respect that he had for her when she was willing to kill the person that was trying to attack him. Even though he felt bad that she had to do it, you can kind of see that. But it doesn't. I think once you see that, and then the mixture of what happens in episode 8, you really see the emotional attachment that he's basically developed for her.
I think it reminded me of the end of Pretty Woman. She saved him right back. They saved each other. They legit saved each other, not only physically many times, but emotionally, because she's just a 14-year-old girl, and clearly she had to take out Riley in the mall. Like, they didn't go mind. She had to have that moment where she had to do her friend in, and he lost his daughter. So they're both really, really damaged. Really damaged.
And that's an interesting departure they did for the show as well too, because with episode 8 specifically, I knew it was coming, so I knew what was about to happen. They do go a little bit farther in the show than they did in the game. It doesn't play out exactly like that. But one of the things I really enjoyed, even though it's awful for the character, is that in the game, Joel comes in at the very end to kind of help out. And in the show, it's just her. She saves herself and kills David, and it's all 100%. And then she doesn't even see Joel until she gets out. And so I thought that was a really nice way of, while traumatizing her even further, it gives her some kind of power over that in terms of, we still see her dealing with the trauma of that. But I thought the fact of them letting her take that moment back over and have the power to basically kill him that way and not have to be quote unquote saved, I think was a strong choice for her. And I think that as you see her progress, especially in the game, you see that kind of, while she still deals with the various traumas, she also has an inner strength, and they've kind of built it throughout the season, but that strength just keeps building, and she becomes a much more powerful character as well, too.
Man, and I tell you what, and I think a lot of that has to do with the magic of finding a showrunner that cares so much about the show, but then having the actual game creator there hand in hand just is what made that magic. They didn't have to fill in the gaps. There was no Superman 3 moments of like, let's throw tar in it, let's see what happens, and you're going to get something completely different. You have both of the chefs there protecting the show. You got a dream, you got to protect it. They protected the show, and we get to reap the benefits of it. And then just even the little things like Ashley Johnson basically being the voice of Ellie in the game, right? But then being the mom of Ellie in the show. I like the whole symbolism of her birthing Ellie into both entertainment, worlds in some way, shape, or form. Those little things went so far for... I love it when a show rewards its viewers, but it over rewards the passionate fans who've been there even before there was a show. And I felt like they did a great job with that.
And I think the nice thing that having Neil Druckmann there on board, as the main creative director for the game, but also not having the ego of, this is my game, you're going to shoot it my way, this is what's going to be in it.
Oh, yeah, agreed.
He had someone that he trusted, who trusted him, and they were able to do this show together to where they weren't beholden to, we have to do it exactly the same. We can make changes, we can switch, and we can turn, and we can make some changes that are going to service the story. And you have the person who kind of is behind the story there with you the whole way. So you can kind of say, like, this is going to work, this doesn't. And then having another showrunner like Craig Mazin, who not only is he a fan of the game, but he just loves the story to begin with, and has that kind of reverence for certain aspects of it, and can push back and say, this was great in the game, but I think we can make this a little bit better, or we can do this differently, and it'll give us a different result that we weren't expecting. And then you have Neil saying, you know what, let's do that because it's interesting, and he doesn't want to make a carbon copy. He doesn't want to just make the game live action.
Right.
He wants to tell the same story in a new medium, and you can bring in new things and take out things to kind of make it different yet still the same. Right,
because the Nick Offerman, the Bill character, you don't ever see him in the game like we saw him in the show, right?
Not in the same way. Bill is a character in the game, so it's essentially the same thing. They go to him in the game. They go to him to basically get car parts so they can get a vehicle, and it's a small little campaign quest that you do to go retrieve these car parts, and you fight off infected and things like that. And then towards the very end, you come across the body of Frank, who's hung himself, and he basically just says, "That was my partner. That was the person I cared about," things like that. And that's really all it is. We never meet Frank. We never see him. And we never get that story, which is why episode 3 was so fantastic. But that's something that they were able to create strictly for the show. And I think it's still probably my favorite episode of the show.
Oh, yeah. That's the one that I think everybody was talking about for a long time after that. What I'm going to ask you both this, and last time, Brian, you were on here, we were, comparing this to The Walking Dead. Isn't this show feel a little bit more gross? Is this one a little bit more gross? Like, what's more gross, old rotting blood or fungus is coming out of your mouth?
I think fungus is coming out of your mouth is pretty gross.
It's pretty gnarly,
I think it's
right?
one of the grosser concepts, because a zombie just bites you and you get sick and you die. This is like athlete's foot shoots into your mouth and you turn into athlete's foot. Right? I mean, that's grosser.
It feels grosser, right?
Yeah, I think part of the thing, too, is, with Walking Dead, there's a big difference between zombies and these infected. Everyone's calling it a zombie show, which I'm not going to complain about that, but it's not. They're not, because when you die, you're dead in the game. That's why the infected don't go after dead bodies, and it's why we see them kill people in that episode with Frank and Bill. They kill people because dead people can't turn infected.
Yeah.
And so with Walking Dead, you're looking at strictly zombies, which are dead people who've come back. So I think there's a bit of a dissociation with, I'm okay killing people because they're already dead. It's why zombie games are so much fun, because you're just mowing down these NPCs that are coming at you.
And you know what? And just another side point. One of the things about zombie movies and games that makes it attractive is the looting stores and stuff. And it's just, that's like the genesis of the zombie fantasy is just like, oh, the mall's abandoned and we're going to take it over. This is like, no, it's 20 years later. The mall's been raided. It's empty. We're out of stuff. There's nothing to loot. You know what I mean?
Except for Victoria's Secret.
All there is what there is. The writing is so good. Like that one part where Pedro Pascal is like, he's getting that one guy painkillers. And he's like, I need the Ziploc bag back. It's like, man, gotta save your Ziplocs in this world.
Yeah.
You can't loot the Walgreens and get all the Ziplocs in the world. A shopping cart full of Ziplocs as you run out, right?
Everything's a resource.
Everything's a resource. So it's like, I understand the folks that say it feels like a zombie show, because it does. But it's like if The Walking Dead ran for 20 seasons, this is where they'd be.
Well, there's a nice moment too where even Ellie, in that second episode, when she's talking to Pedro, and she basically says, does it bother you knowing that they were people once? And he kind of just blows it off. I think that's one of the big things is that we're dealing with the infected, and they're not quote unquote dead. They are still a large remnant of the person they were, which is why we still see like the faces and whatnot. And so essentially you're basically just killing someone that is still alive versus a zombie where you're kind of killing something dead. So I think that's a big difference that kind of makes the show set aside, is you're not just mowing down random things. Like we can still see the humanity a little bit inside some of these people.
Yeah. And there was a few of those moments, right? When they tried to stop, what's his name? Sam's dad, or no, brother.
Henry.
His brother, yeah. He was trying to stop him from killing himself, or when they had to decide, Ellie's mom, she's like, you have to kill me. And she's like, I can't kill. Can you imagine like that struggle at that moment? It feels like so hopeless, but at the same time, you got to be the one to do it. Like, that's not going to be easy, and I think that was like when Walking Dead was at its best, it was those struggles, right? Even though it became a meme, knowing that Carl had to take out his mom just packed a lot of punch.
Coral
taking out his brother, or
Carl.
Daryl taking out his brother. There's just that pack. So, and I feel like this is early Walking Dead. That's the only comparison, just because it's such a big zeitgeist show. But I don't know. They don't feel like zombies to me. They feel grosser. They feel like some weird Super Mario Brother mushroom attack.
Well, the big thing too, when we watch Walking Dead, we learn early on that we all have I want to call it infection, but we're all going to turn into zombies when we die. We learn that early on in the show that everybody,
first season, yeah.
Everybody basically has what it is that turns you into a zombie, and there's no going back from that. So once you die, you're going to turn, and then throughout the show, it's only that. There's no like, if you get bit, you're automatically going to turn. You have to actually physically die. So if you get attacked by a zombie, even if you get, stabbed or something like that, you're not going to quote unquote turn until you physically die from it. Whereas this, as soon as you're bitten, doesn't matter. You're going to die. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a big difference too, is there's more of an immediacy with stuff like that.
Right. What do you think?
But the people don't even actually die, right? They remain alive, kind of.
Exactly. You're basically
the
host took over your brain.
The host takes over,
like
and that's why
like the Borg, but it's athlete's foot.
Yeah. And that's why she says kill me, because she doesn't want that to happen to her. She knows what's coming. The worst case of athlete's foot she's
Imagine
ever
if
had.
athlete's foot is what collapse society. It's so bad.
Yeah, that's That's a terrifying feeling, to think that you are somewhere in there, you are no longer piloting your own vessel, but you are watching it all go down, rather than you're like, okay, I'm dead. It's just an animated meat, versus you still being a part of this somehow. That's got to be rough. And I remember us talking about this, and it felt like a hit before it was even a hit. So it's confirmed hit. HBO is gonna figure out a way to keep it going, maybe even beyond the game. So what do you think is going to be next for season 2?
I mean, honestly, it's really it's up in the air. I personally, I want to see more. Like I said earlier, I want to see more of what happens in between the two games, because 5 years is a long time.
Yeah.
And both of the characters are in a very different place in the second game. And so you get to see a little bit of it throughout the game of what led them to that, but you don't really get to spend a lot of time in that kind of era. And so I would like to see that part happening, finding out what happened in those 5 years, because there's the nice thing about it is you can really do what you want with this show. Like, you have this really nice built world, and granted, you have a story that you're working towards with part 2, but you can build a season with characters we haven't seen yet, dealing with other issues that are going to happen in this kind of world. I don't know if they're going to do that, because then you're going to have a lot of people who are just waiting for you to get to the second game, basically.
That's very much true, and that's what I was thinking. They had a lot of characters that I was actually surprised they were only there for 1 week. Like, you didn't see their entire story. I really thought with the Graham Greene, when you only like, I was like, oh, they got Graham Greene, and he was only in like one section of the show.
Yeah.
But like, what was going on with that whole side quest, right? There's tons of side quests that they have in there. The whole pedo cannibals, like, how did they get to that point, right? There's just, I don't know. I think you're absolutely right. There's some flexibility because these were pretty big time jumps, right? Between each episode, this wasn't like, okay, the next day, the next week. Was there a couple spots that it's been months? They did walk across the country.
I think the whole show is a year, isn't it?
Well, like the last 2 episodes specifically, when we go from, I think it's not the last 2, but we go from the time jump between when they are Bill and Frank's, and then we go into the winter. So there's like a 3 months later time jump, and then they don't specify the jump in between the final episode. But when we leave, the cannibal cult, it's winter. And then when they move on, when we catch back up, it's spring. So some time has passed. We don't know if it's a month or how long it is. But when you're playing the game, it's a lot more gradual, just because you've got a 40 to 60 hour experience that you're doing. So you can kind of show that progression of time a little more smoothly. So it wasn't really necessarily jarring. I got why they did it. That's just one of the unfortunate things I think you have when you have a streaming show as opposed to like a network show like Walking Dead, where you have 22 episodes. Or I guess Walking Dead was still cable, so it didn't have as many. But when you have a show that can do 15 to 20 episodes versus doing 9 or 10, you kind of have to make some of those kind of concessions with the time like that.
And there was a part of me, and I was okay with those time jumps. But did that feel like a season finale to you? That ending, it felt very like the whole hospital stuff, but then the way they ended it afterwards, it just felt like season 2 has to kick right off from there. Just like, tell me, and he lied to her, right? That was the whole thing. Like, don't worry about it. And then it just ended. Like, that didn't feel like the finale. Like, I'm ready for more immediately. So I'm hoping that's where season 2, there's not going to be too big of a time jump there.
That would be my hope. But also it's because it's being selfish. I want to see more of the story. I want more seasons. So I'm hoping that they wouldn't go directly into season 2. But if they do, I'm not going to complain because It's still going to be fantastic. And I'm saying that as someone who knows what's coming and can't wait, because I love watching people's reactions. And like, my wife and I played this game. My coworker had played this game, but I know I've talked to quite a few people who haven't played the game. And so it's been kind of fun getting their reactions and seeing stuff like that. And so knowing what's coming as well, too, I'm just kind of like kid in the candy shop, just because I'm like, oh, it's because I remember what it was like playing through the game and experiencing that for myself. And so it's always nice to kind of see someone else share your happiness, or more appropriately share your pain or fear and things like that.
Yeah, there was a couple of happy moments in there for a downer show. There was, those giraffes were not our work. Those were legit giraffes.
Yeah, and hands down, that was the one scene I was like, they have to show it. Because it's one of the most beautiful parts of the game.
Yeah.
And it happens around the same time. You get this moment of just serenity. And I was like, if they don't show the giraffes in this show, I swear I was going to be furious. And so once they announced it was coming, I was just like, I'm so thankful for that. And so when they showed it, I loved how they built up to it. And you could see like the shadow across the window of its neck going by. And I was just like, yes, here we are.
Yeah, that was very cool. That was very fun to watch. And the other one may have just been me, but again, going back to the cannibal cult inside, was that like a 70s Pizza Hut? Did it make you miss when Pizza Hut used to be fancy? Remember when Pizza Hut used to spoil us?
Have all the wood paneling inside?
Yeah, wood paneling, red velvet napkins, deep dish pizza. That's what it felt like, an old Pizza Hut to me, but they were eating, apparently, not venison. Well, it was not venison.
Homemade pizza.
And there was just something about the way those plates were clinking afterwards, and then you find out what they were actually eating. I did not see that one coming. That, to me, that was probably the biggest surprise and I didn't play the game. And there were some cool surprises, just for a show, but that was 2 big whoppers in one episode, man.
Well, it was a nice playing the game. I knew it was coming, and I didn't really think they were going to change that, because it is kind of it's an interesting choice, and it's something that's very, everyone knows about the game. And so what I actually loved those moments, like the clinking plates of how they're making it. It's so uncomfortable and you don't know why.
Very uncomfortable.
And so I thought that was a really wise choice of them sowing those kind of seeds and just sitting there like, oh, it's coming, it's coming. I can't wait for this to happen. Because I had a few people as well who were like, I didn't expect that, especially because you see it as more like not as much of a cult, but just kind of like a heavily religious group, and seeing that extreme that they've taken it to, and them even trying to rationalize it too. Like he's like, what am I going to do? Let these people starve when we have these dead bodies and stuff?
Yeah.
But then you realize like, well, maybe they weren't dead. Maybe they had to be made dead to do that.
Yeah, they didn't die of natural causes.
They were made dead.
That was pretty powerful. Mario, what's your final thoughts before we jump on that finale and the show as a whole?
I think it's fine. It's good. I think it's going to be better when we revisit it. I think it came in with a lot of hype, a lot of criticism, a lot of judgment. But I think Craig Mazin's a really good writer, and like certain things about the show, just as I think about them now that it's over, they kind of connect now, and I think it's gonna age well.
I think it's gonna age really well. This era, Pedro Pascal era we're in, I don't think it's ever gonna really feel dated. I'd like to see. These shows can't go on forever, and they don't. Usually, when they try to stretch them, they're not going to work. I think a sixth season, if they can find a way to get 6 seasons out of 2 games, we're going to win. That's going to stay really, really strong. I don't know, B Rose, what are you thinking? Like, what do you think is the perfect ending point season-wise for this show? Not that we already want to talk about its ending, just in the beginning, but.
Well, I think it's going to depend on a couple of things. One, and they'll never say anything until they're ready to. But
no.
I'm not 100% convinced that there's not a third game coming. As well as there was a big controversy around the second game with leaks happening and things like that, and some people not happy with the direction the game took. But the second game is open-ended at the very end, so they could very easily pull a third game if they wanted to, and it really just kind of depends on if they have the story. Because I don't think they would. They're not really a studio that's known for just doing it for the money.
Yeah.
So I think if they have a story, I mean, they would obviously already be working on it. So if we get a third game, then there's definitely more seasons. If they're just going to call it with the 2 games and done, I think you could realistically get 2 or 3 seasons out of it, depending on the way you take it, because it's such a dense story. But I'd be fine with it capping out at a 4th season, like doing a 4th season and that be the end. If that's it, I'd be happy with that. I'd be happy with 3. I'm honestly just happy we get the show.
Yeah.
So anything we get extra, I am glad that we're doing more than 1 season for the second game. But I'm not going to be picky about what I get.
Right. No, that sounds fair. I'm psyched, man. HBO's comeback, right? They've always been award television.
Yeah.
So I think HBO delivering on this, they needed this win. They needed 2 wins, and they got it. People are still kind of smarting over Game of Thrones. So to get House of Dragon as a hit, and then this follow-up as a hit, HBO's back in the running. So good stuff. Is Mike B in the Incredible Tron 3000?
He is not.
He's not in there.
No.
All right, I will text him, because we also got to talk about Scream. We also got to talk, and Mike's been a kind of on a little bit of a hiatus from the theatrical experience, and then there was 2 movies that were trying to pull him back in, and it was 2 in a row. It was Creed, which we already spoke about, and it was Scream 6. And B Rose, I know you went and saw Scream 6, and you're not a huge horror nerd, but this one you were there, and I know your daughter is. And that means basically you are.
Yeah. By proxy, yeah. I'm not a huge horror fan. Although, to be honest, Scream was one of the ones I actually really dug. I really dug the first 2 Screams. The third one was a little less memorable. And I remember when the 4th one came out, I ended up watching it because it was on somewhere, and it was okay. But I hadn't watched the 5th one, and I hadn't, obviously hadn't seen this one. So my daughter we've been going through all of these horror films because she's 11 and just loves horror movies. And so we've been, particular about what she can and can't watch, but we let her watch the Screams. She's been watching a lot of the Final Destinations and things like that. Loves Jason, loves all that kind of stuff. And so she knew it was coming. And so she was really like wanting to go see it. And I remember I know it's annoying for a lot of people, but I'm one of those. It doesn't matter how well a sequel or anything ties into the previous one. I don't like not knowing what's happened before. So I even told her, I was like, we'll go see the movie sometime this weekend, but I was like, I need to watch the 5th one because you've already seen it, and then we'll go. And literally, first thing Saturday morning, she was like, have you watched it yet? I'm like, no, I'm going to watch it. I was like, do you want to watch it right now? She goes, yeah. And as soon as we were done, she goes, you said we could go see it this weekend, and it's Saturday afternoon. When are we going to see it? She literally was on me all day. I was like, you know what? Let's just go right now. We've got an hour before the next one starts. We'll go see it. And so we watched the 5th one, and I'm not going to lie, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the 5th one, and then going into this one, I really liked it as well too.
Yeah, it's a fun flick. So yeah, let's dig in. I'm very curious on your take and Mike.
Are we gonna wait for Mike or no?
Yeah, he's coming in. I was just gonna say let's get a word from our fake sponsors, and I'll get him his info. That was on me. So
I bet you think my favorite bubbly is champagne. Well, surprise. What I really love is Sun Country Wine Cooler. It's a truly marvelous blend of real fruit juice and premium wine. As a matter of fact, it's the best tasting cooler I've ever had. So when they asked me to talk about Sun Country, naturally I accepted. Sun Country, say, gimme the real juice cooler. They told me I'd be working in fur, but this is ridiculous.
Wang announces the most important step in managing information since the computer. WangNet. WangNet is the electronic connection that gives anyone in your office any kind of information they need instantly by linking together every conceivable kind of office equipment, no matter who makes it. WangNet links you to floors below or satellites above, using just half its capacity, leaving room, of course, for Wang's next breakthrough in office automation.
I am here to make a pitch for Sun Country Peach. Why me? Because I'm crazy about the taste of peach. And Sun Country Wine Cooler is the most refreshing blend of premium wine and real peach juice I ever pitched. It has such a great taste. It's how you say it? Peachy, peachy. Sun Country. Say, give me the real juice cooler. You know, I don't mind doing cuchi in a bear suit, but it's so itchy. Caramba, me está matando tantas hormigas dentro de los pantalones.
Let's buy our small computer from the giant computer company. You can't beat Goliath.
No. Goliath. Right, David?
Sir, let's go with Wang. Nobody makes a better small computer or word processor. They're giant killers.
It happened before. It can happen again, because nobody's hungrier than Wang.
He's right.
I used to be frightened by all the wine coolers I saw. I was scared I wouldn't pick the right one. Luckily, I did. It was the most refreshing one of them all, Sun Country Wine Cooler. You see, Sun Country is a blend of premium white wine and real fruit juice. That's what gives it its great taste. Sun Country, say, give me the real juice cooler. If you don't say Sun Country, you'd better sleep with your lights on.
All over the world, Wang is a leader in office technology. Word processing, data processing, and now with our new...
Back to snack time. All right. Shout out to Wang Computers. If you have a computer, choose a Wang. It's snack time real quick.
I love how we're talking about snack time right after you just said Wang.
I know exactly.
And it's a panda eating a bamboo. Okay.
That's right.
All right, real quick. Jeff?
Ready. Yes. We interrupt this Wang commercial to bring you tamales. That's right. So it is snack time, and we're in Texas. Guess what that means? Tamales. Right there.
Close-up cam.
Close-up cam. Oh, yeah, let's do that because it's very cinematic there. Look at that tamale.
You have to remove the peel. Explain to people you remove the peel.
Yeah, so I don't know for anyone outside of Texas. I didn't know what tamales were. This is for a shoot. When I first moved here, someone handed me a tamale, and I just picked it up and I just bit it. Because and it's like, so apparently you do not need to eat the husk. So you just kind of bring that in. You unfurl that. You can have chicken, you can have pork, you can have cheese, and it is surrounded with an oatmeal. The Puerto Rican in me, I had the same version of this where they use bananas instead of oatmeal. So, but yeah, we'll take a bite here. Everyone, you guys have tamales?
Rose, they give you a tamale?
Yep.
All right, so cheers. Toast to tamale toast. Texas tamale toast. It's tradition.
JJ knows they're not in season. Yeah, it's a weird thing that we have
they're not in season.
It's a strange thing that I have these. I know.
This is not tamale
In
season.
Texas, every season is tamale season. Tamales, brisket, and tacos. That's really every season.
I hope you I hope you didn't just work us into the 70s Pizza Hut that we were just talking about in The Last of Us. Like, where'd you get these tamales? It's venison. But
we'll never know. Okay, bring
yes,
our guest
our
on.
Texas tamale toast is to bring in our friend from the Pacific Northwest, Mike B. Mike, what's up? Museum of Now.
Guys.
Mike, what's up, man? Welcome.
There's Mike.
Good to be on. Good to be on.
Good to have you back.
Looking forward to talking about Scream.
Yeah. So it's funny. I was telling them that you were on a little bit of a theatrical hiatus, and you were ready to, like, what film was going to bring you back into the theaters, and then you got 2 in a row. You got Creed, and you got Scream. So
yeah, back to back, 2 weeks in a row. I'll say that sometimes it feels like people in the theater have forgotten that you need to whisper in the theater now. Like a lot of cross chatter during Scream. I even gave out a shh, and somebody's like, "Don't shush me," and I was like, "Shh." So not without a little bit of conflict out there getting back into the world, but it was a really good experience. Yeah, totally. You don't know if they're gonna wait in the alley for you after the movie in a ghost face mask, you know?
Right.
So the shushers aside, Mike, we were just talking about B. Rose. You know, he wasn't a huge horror fan, but he was a fan of Scream. But we know you're a very big fan of Scream and the franchise, and you have have fantasy booked that before and afterwards. What were your first reactions on Scream 6?
So I think that, I really enjoyed it. I had a good time at the theater. I think that there was a lot of stuff that they got right. I feel like my main takeaway as I'm walking out of the theater is just how much Radio Silence is focused on taking over this franchise and really carving out the next generation of what Scream is going to be. It felt like a hard pivot compared to how legacy characters were used in 5, the positioning of those legacy characters, the focus on the new characters, and the fact that you got these 4 surviving people. And I think the first time that they tried to kind of reboot this stuff in Scream 4, they ended up just killing everybody except for Kirby. Right. So it's a little hard to build, a new legacy that way. But I think the core 4, gotta love it. Gotta love it.
Shout out to the core 4.
I think this was just like a really good turn of circumstances for Radio Silence, because I really think the reason this movie feels so different is that Neve Campbell said no and didn't want to be in the movie. So all of a sudden they had to rewrite the movie, and then Radio Silence did their pivot, and it give them a really good chance to get over, and it just did great. I think it really The lead 2 characters, Jenna Ortega and Melissa Barrera, the Carpenter sisters, which I didn't like last movie, which I really like now.
Yeah.
I think this movie just did really well, making them the central focus of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, who cares who Neve Campbell's there, whether she's there or not? You know?
That was 100% correct. I feel like in this one, they successfully took over this franchise. And now having the legacy characters in there are nice to have, not a need to have. And I don't feel like they necessarily accomplished that in the first one. But now I want to go, first one being Scream 5. Now I want to go back and watch Scream 5 after seeing Scream 6 and see if it feels a little bit different. Because that felt like the merging of 2 worlds. But this one really did feel like the Carpenter sisters story. And then you happen to have Gale Weathers and Kirby that had shared history, but it was still all about the Carpenter sisters. And hats off to this casting. They clobbered it with this casting. They did last time too. Obviously, Jenna Ortega just happened to become a megastar. since
Yeah, I
then,
think
but-
that helped the movie a lot. That probably got a lot of folks into theater. TikTok is going to be how you promote movies from now on.
Yeah.
I went to the whatever they had the Jenna Ortega special features before the movie, and it was just like Jenna Ortega and the rest of the cast doing stunts or whatever, like feeling into a body bag to see what's in the body bag. Anyway, you can just tell she's just such a star. Her charisma is off the charts.
Oh, that's right. You went to the fan event. I was going to ask you, what else did they show?
It was mostly just a music video and like some extra content. They didn't have trailers. It was just promo stuff in the front.
But we gotta show what you did. They did have this.
They had the Scream poster, which was great.
There we go.
Oh, that's dope. Yeah, that's cool.
No BS on it. It doesn't have like the fan event logo or the AMC logo on it. It's just a piece of art. It's cool. But anyway, I just think Jenna Ortega and Melissa Barrera now are so over.
Oh, yeah.
And it just occurred, someone was talking about this. It was like, Melissa Barrera is about to be huge. I'm going to throw two things into the universe, and you just picture them in your head, and whatever happens, it doesn't matter. Melissa Barrera as Wonder Woman, maybe? How about that?
Younger
Isn't that a great idea?
That
Melissa Barrera as maybe like Lois Lane, maybe?
Ooh. I can see
I mean, if we're talking fantasy casting from the Scream Six cast, I would take Josh Segura as the new Batman.
Ooh. Yeah.
Which one is Josh Segura?
He's the Melissa Barrera's boyfriend.
Oh, it's the new Batman.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah.
What was his name?
He's got so much going on right here.
Yeah.
That if you put a cowl around that, you'd get these little smirks and things that would be very cartoony.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot.
Why is his it has a very Pug. His name was Pug in She-Hulk.
Yeah.
And he was great in She-Hulk. That was like one of the best parts of that show, even when he had his so he was great in this casting of him. I did not expect him in there. And Mike, we were talking, what's the other guy that he was in Spider-Man? He played Flash in Spider-Man. He was in
Tony Revolori.
Yeah.
Wow. That was great. To me, they're finding a way to reinvent the opening scene every time, and it worked. Right? Last time they did the opening scene where she did survive, and that was the swerve. This time the swerve was the killer just completely unmasked themselves, and then the killer got killed by the killer. And that one, I don't know about you, but that was in the theater was like, whoa, what? And it just like all bets were off, and I think at that moment it became their fully 100% became their franchise. At that specific moment, that was it. It was all theirs.
So really interesting. I watched Radio Silence on the Dead Meat podcast earlier today, and they were talking about how the script gets written, then it gets kind of handed off to the Radio Silence team. So they don't really know too much about the script when they first get it. And that in the script, it goes through and it treats it just like an opening kill, knife comes up, and then in the script there's a line, but it does not cut to a title. And they, in that first reading of the script, were basically going through that same kind of emotion that all of us in the theater went through as we saw the killer unmasked, and then you go into this kind of like next expository sequence where we learn a bunch about him.
How do you get to this point where we're talking about Screen 6, right? And traditionally, when horror franchises hit this moment, they're on a downward slide.
I mean, Friday the 13th, Part 6 was really good.
Yeah. But I mean, but back then, right? It was just like, it was not revered like the first one is. This is going to be do you guys think this is going to be a standalone trilogy? Because that's what it feels like to me. It was a requel, but it was a reboot. Even though it was a requel, but it was a successful requel because it successfully rebooted it and added new characters, new death, new emotions.
Well, it's just like you said. I think that they have hijacked this series away from Nev Campbell.
They did.
Courtney Cox, all the old characters, the legacy characters, they're done with. No one wants. It's like Scream and Creed are just they're brothers. They're just doing the same thing, just hijacking franchise away from their creators.
Yeah, And
I say Nev Campbell opening kill next movie. Let's just get rid of her.
That would be.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if I'm Nev Campbell's agent, I'd be negotiating that. I'd be like, look,
hell yeah.
Yeah, opening scene kill, and that's it. My last payday, but it's huge for sure. For sure.
God, it would be so. I mean, and it would really harken back to that original.
Yeah.
That original Scream moment where you really actually thought Drew Barrymore was gonna be the lead in the movie. You go into the theater, all the promotional stuff is like, Sydney's back, this and that. She's dead in 15 minutes. Now it's a whole new world.
The rub is somehow in this internet technology age, they have to not leak that.
Yeah.
Oh, good luck. Everything leaked about this movie. Like literal footage of the kill reveal was leaked before this movie released.
What was the Marvel is suing, or they're trying to find the people that they can sue on that MCU subreddit, and they
MCU Marvel spoilers subreddit.
Yeah, and I was reading how they got the spoiler, and somehow they got the spoilers from like the Portuguese caption, and then they translated the caption and came back. So nothing.
Well, they had the Google Doc. They had the Google Doc that the translators were using to translate the movie into all these different languages.
Oh my god.
So you had a Google Doc that had like that had Quantum Mania, script in all different languages around the world. Anybody could read it.
Yes, anybody can read that. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be really tough to keep it silent if it does happen. But I love that idea. You should be booking. You need your own studio, but that's a whole nother show. B Rose, what? So you were telling us earlier. You watched 5 right into 6, which I think that worked really well. Did you go back and watch any of the other ones, or were these your only ones that you experienced the screams?
Not recently. Because we were letting our daughter watch them, so I'd watched the first 3 again.
Okay.
With her. I wasn't a huge fan of the 4th one, so I went ahead and I was like, all right, I remember what happened, so I was like, you can watch that with your mom or something like that. I don't mind. But with this one, I was like, I'm taking you to see 6. I need to watch 5. So I was for the most part caught up with those other ones. So getting to experience 5 right before 6 was, I do think it helped. I probably still would have liked them the same, but it was a nice kind of like just little appetizer to go into it, and then going into the meal of Scream 6. My daughter, I don't want to say she's easily impressed, but she's just a fan, especially of anything horror related. So I knew she was already going to like it to begin with. And plus, now that she's watched Wednesday, she loves Jenna Ortega. So it's kind of more of just giving her more of what she likes. But we both enjoyed it. We had a blast. I'm not a huge horror fan, especially in the theater. I'm not a huge horror fan, but we went. I enjoyed it because Scream is horror, but it's not like horror.
Right.
There's much more extreme things, but we both enjoyed it. I had a little fun. I mean, I don't want to say it was predictable, but I could kind of tell where things were about to happen, so I could always kind of just nudge her when something jumps out and give her the jump scare, which is always fun as a dad. But yeah, we both enjoyed it. I like the direction they're going. I don't want to bring up a false comparison, but it's almost kind of how I feel with Fast and the Furious. Like, once you got to that 5th one, they kind of changed the format, and it made it better going forward. And so
that is
I kind of hope that maybe they'll do that with this. I really enjoy this kind of pivot towards these new characters and kind of phasing out the legacy ones. As sad as it is to watch Dewey go away finally, it's kind of a necessary evil, but I think it helps push the story and kind of lets them continue the story without being beholden to what came before. You can still honor it, but you can still kind of pave your own way.
Yeah. And Mike, we got to talk about this because you and I have fantasy booked this a lot, so we got to bring this up because I popped in the theater when they brought it up was the Stu tease. So we always thought, what if Stu didn't die, right? And you all going all the way back to 1, and they never even hinted to it before. But then showing the TV and then her saying, "Oh, if you believe he's dead," and then I was like, "Oh man!" So there was that part of me that if there was one legacy character to come back, I'd want to see it. But then, Mike, you brought it up. You're like, after seeing this, I don't know if I need Stu.
Yeah, so I mean, I think everybody needs Stu. Like, I take more Stu any day of the week. It's one of the best. Like, post-kill reveal, his character is so fun. Matthew Lillard's still out there crushing it. So I would never turn down Stu in a movie. And since we talked, I've thought about it a little bit. And so I think that there's something really interesting here where it does feel like the most focused effort in that movie is really positioning Richie as this like central character amongst the killers, that he's the driving force behind 5 happening. He's the reason that these killers go on to do something in 6. So you got to think there's going to be some sort of thing that they're doing with that and positioning Richie. And Richie, you know, he was a fan. We saw all this fan, you know, content that he made, all this stuff that he did. And I think that that is really likely to kind of take us to this point where we do get that cult of Ghostface that was teased in the original draft of Scream 3. But this is where my mind has gone since then. So I still think that's the case. I think the next movie, we're going to get that kind of cult of Ghostface type moment where you just have tons of killers, right? We had 5 killers in this movie, basically. 2 of them were already like acting because they wanted to finish the movie that Richie started, right? So I think you're going to get that happening exponentially. So there's going to be this really even weirder kind of thing about what the concept of a ghost face will kind of come into play a little bit here. But Scream doesn't really have the format of a traditional trilogy at this stage. It has the trilogy, then it has an additional add-on movie. Scream 4, to me, is part of a continuation of that original story. It's Wes Craven's last movie, so it's a very well-established 4 movies. The first Scream in this series is Scream 5. So what I would say is next movie, we get that Richie has like cultivated and created this environment where the cult of Ghostface can come back. And then in the 4th one, that like the 4th of the second trilogy, that's when I would bring back Stu. So maybe you have a core killer in the next one of like Leslie Mocker or someone in Stu's family, and there's some direct connection to Richie, and that leads into, yeah, and it's really good that the Mockers were super well connected, and Stu's been living in a basement somewhere for the last 30 years, and no one knows, you know. That's where my fantasy booking kind of has gone since my original viewing.
I think that's great, because you imagine, because real, you know, he was, you know, Matthew Lillard was younger then, but I think you can even do real time Matthew Lillard now, but Locke get a little bit of crazy, but then he's got a little Stephen First in the unseen, you know, living in his mom's basement and like really losing it. I think that could be
all scarred up and disfigured from the TV.
Yeah, I think that could be really fun.
Yeah.
Mario, I got to ask you too, you know, because we both were disappointed in Friday the 13th. Jason Takes Manhattan. There wasn't enough Manhattan in Manhattan. Did Scream live up to the hype for, you know, bringing it to the big city?
Well, yeah, I think it was a very strategic use of how they shot it. The Radio Silence or whoever is very good at, they use their exterior New York shots sparingly and in appropriate spots. We've got a lot of being in apartments, New York apartments kind of vibe, you know. Mm-hmm. It's just shot smarter. It probably, you know what I mean? Jason Takes Manhattan. It was it was just a different time. But that sequence, there's 2 sequences that really sell New York. There's the ladder across the 2 buildings.
Oh yeah, that was a big one,
which is like huge, and then the subway. Subway sells New York like no other.
Yeah,
you know, and I think it totally worked. It felt like New York.
That subway scene was.
And
rough.
even what's the name of the neighbor, the hot neighbor?
A Pug. I don't
Pug.
know. Well, he's Pug.
Pug just feels like so New York neighbor.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And he's such a good dude. He's such a good dude in the end, you know.
Yeah, that was a good swerve.
I thought the corner store was a nice little section too.
Very true.
But
Bodega.
I will say with the subway specifically, I had such a great time with that. Because I've been in New York and I've been on the subway, like, you know, many people have. My daughter was coming from it just not really knowing what was going on. But what I loved, and it's a different fandom, but watching that subway sequence happen, for me, I'm sitting here and I'm watching her experience it the same way I did. There is a hugely popular episode of Doctor Who that deals with these things called the Weeping Angels. And they do that. They can only move when you're not seeing them. So when you blink, they can move. And there's some great shots that almost mirror that, to where in the show Doctor Who, when you blink, the Weeping Angel gets closer and closer as it's coming towards you and trying to attack you. And so I was watching that happen with my daughter, watching her see the lights going out and he's a little bit closer and a little bit closer. And I was having my own little Doctor Who moment with her, watching her get freaked out by that.
That's terrifying. If anyone who's ever had the sleep paralysis, which I've had, that weeping, I didn't know there was something about weeping angels in Doctor Who. I might have to watch that episode and go back, because that's terrifying. Did you guys feel like they made a very conscious effort to make the kills and everything seem more violent? Like the knife stabs had a lot more thuds. That shotgun had to be the most violent shotgun ever.
I think so. But look, this is the age we're living in. This is why Terrifier 2 was so over, because it's so brutally violent. It was a different feeling for people. And we've just lived through the end of the world twice in the last few years or something like that, That type of thing is what people people are just ready for.
Yeah.
You need to push it on the violence now. It can't be funny violence.
Well, and Radio Silence was talking about this in particular as well, and what they were saying was, you're coming to a Scream movie, you're going to be suspending disbelief in so many different ways to allow that narrative to exist. Why not allow the violence to be violent and not question the reality behind it?
Yeah.
Well, how did you guys feel about the fact that folks in this movie, it seemed like our heroes get stabbed more but still live? All of our heroes got stabbed quite a bit and lived. Jennifer Ortega gets stabbed a lot.
She did.
Well, so does Chad, right?
But you expect Chad to get stabbed a lot.
Yeah.
I think Jenna Ortega, our secondary lead, you don't expect her to get stabbed a bunch of times in the finale and still survive.
I thought she was done. After the scene where he said, "You got to let me go." I was like, "Are they going to kill her off the franchise right now?" I thought she was done. I mean, it was a strong scene.
I think it would have had less, like, the only reason that I have any issue with the fact that all these people got attacked so much and none of them died is because none of them died. Like, they didn't even kill Gale. That felt like that should have been a kill.
They killed Dewey, but not Gale. Come on,
right? I need some padding on the kill count a little bit. I don't mind the gratuitous violence if there's some outcomes.
I'm sure the writers are kicking themselves right now if they could have swapped Gale for Dewey. If Dewey was still in the series, how over would it even be?
Oh my God, yeah.
Dewey and Jenna Ortega doing scenes. Come on.
I think this movie missed a Dewey. Like, I didn't miss Sydney at all, but I missed having someone that's kind of getting exposition said to them, and he's just like, his face is utterly confused by everything.
And he's been stabbed more than anybody. He gets like stabbed to death in every movie and survives. He was the original sort of like end cap joke. He's still alive.
The original Gurney.
He's still alive. The thumbs up guy. He's still alive. And then they just kill him off for no reason. That was not fair. They should have killed Gale. Sorry if that's gonna ruffle any feathers, but
I don't think so. I think she was.
Dewey should still be alive.
Yeah, I think she was the right one to take out for sure. And I was actually surprised that they took the time to say, "Oh, Gale's gonna pull through."
Yeah,
was that like added after the fact? It felt added after.
It feels like there's specific decisions that they made in this movie that were based, like, that are contextually based decisions. So, like, Gale lives because that subverts everyone expecting her to die because Dewey died last movie. Last movie, they cast, someone whose movie just before that they played a serial murderer in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. They were the killer, and the second most famous non lead in the movie was the other killer, and so the casting kind of telegraphed it a little bit. But in this movie, you get both of those characters, the two kids characters. I'm really glad that Dermot Mulroney's character was there to talk, because the other two just felt like goofy henchmen to me.
They did.
A little bit.
That's a good point. They did feel
As most kids do to their parents.
Yeah, right?
That's a good way to put it, because you expected a lot more from the I'm gonna die a virgin guy, and then the slutty.
Did you know that was Spider from Avatar?
I didn't find that out till after the fact. It didn't look anything like Spider.
Yeah,
but I did not know that, so I felt like that was a little bit if him and his sister weren't like fully fleshed out enough, especially knowing that, like, coming from the family of the, Richie, right, who's a huge personality. I was surprised these were so subdued, but obviously Dermot Mulroney was not. He brought it, and then it made sense with all. I can see, this New York cop being way more aggressive than any of the kid killers, right? He's definitely. I know, Mike. We were trying to go through and figure out who actually did the killing, because you had three to choose from, and you didn't think, but I thought, was he the dad was the ghost faced in the bodega, right?
He had to be, yeah,
because that guy is like, you got a problem, guy? I mean, that was so New York.
That guy's cold.
Yeah. And then there's still did the shotgun. I was like, yeah, that had to be the dad.
That had to be him, and the one at the psychiatrist house where he stabs him through the door.
Oh,
in
yes.
the eye.
That was another
That one
one.
was also super violent and more along the lines of the dad. And then the girl had the subway and Gail, and then the brother was the one in the chase scene where they faked the sister's death, and then the ladder and all that stuff. That had to be the guy. The funny thing, again, radio silence in this interview, they were saying that, like, because somebody asked, like, in that scene when Josh Segura's character is looking through the window and he sees Ghostface just standing there behind the sister talking on the phone to the dad, they were like, so, like, on the second viewing, we were kind of wondering, is Ghostface just sort of like standing there waiting for her to get off the phone so that they can fake her death and then go do this scene thing? And it just kind of looks like he's stalking her a little bit. And then they went down this whole thing where they were like, yeah, like, that's sort of like what it was. We kind of even had the notion that, like, while the sister was in there with her boyfriend, that the brother must have been in the closet waiting for them to finish so that he could then go kill the boyfriend when he went to the bathroom. So it just gets really weird and dark and complicated when you kind of break down the details of who did what kill in this movie, because it's a family unit.
Right. And then obviously with what's his name? Roger L. Jackson, is that his name? Who plays actual Ghostface. I don't think he modifies his actions when he's like, oh, maybe now I'm going to be a female, or now I'm going to be a male. I think he's just Ghostface the entire time. He takes those weirdly wicked bumps and then the knife wipe. Like, all his gimmicks are pretty much when Ghostface.
They had a new stunt guy. This movie.
Oh, did they?
A guy named Matt. Yeah. And that's part of, this guy is a lot more physical, and that's part of why Ghostface started to become a bit more violent in the movie.
Yeah.
And they just let him do it. They said that they tell the stuntman, just be Ghostface. They don't tell him anything about who is playing Ghostface or any of that other kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just go be Ghostface.
Because like in the older movies, it's like he seems more menacing in this one. Because in the old ones, you watch him, it's like running up the stairs. They throw a hot pot of coffee at him, and that'll deter Ghostface. But in this one, he's just like shotgunning people and barreling through things.
Yeah, because he's
less clumsy too.
Way less clumsy.
What did
no
you
frying
not tripping
pan.
over couches?
Is this the first
and shit.
Scream where a Ghostface was not hit with a frying pan? I'm pretty sure he gets hit with a frying pan.
Ghostface was hit with a frying pan. Gail hits him.
Okay, so it did get him. Okay, so it's a streak. Every Scream movie, Ghostface gets hit with a frying pan.
It's like Tangled, but with knives.
What was the? So what the tagline in the trailers was, "I'm something different." What do you guys think they meant by that? Because that's why I didn't 100% wrap my head around.
This is, I'll tell you what, this is the first Ghostface that's not a movie nerd.
Maybe that's what he's on.
I was hoping they were going to lean into that a little bit more with that first stinger of like fuck horror movies.
Yeah, they telegraphed that at the beginning. I think that's what they were trying to do.
But didn't. Yeah, they didn't really go hard on that.
They got sidetracked from that.
Yeah,
because even though he wasn't, none of them were movie marks, but at the same time, it still took place in a theater. They were showing the, Richie's
costumes.
Well, there's no movie monologues in this one, is there? Like, there's no Ghostface on the phone monologuing about movies.
No, I don't think so.
Only Mindy.
Oh yeah, yes, right. Yeah, Mindy did. She lived up to.
But I'm saying in every the central. The origin of Ghostface is what's your favorite scary movie?
Yeah.
Conversation, right? There's none of that because we have the whole thing at the beginning. It's like who cares about horror movies?
Right. But
so I think they leaned into it. I think they tried to make it different.
That was what they were doing, so not fully into films. Okay, I can buy that. I
also like how they used social media and the internet and all that stuff. Incorporate that into the movie. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, I agree, especially with Sam's character being like you gotta imagine in the Ghostface world where Jill was a killer that was trying to get fame from surviving, that any survivors that happen after that are going to have some level of social media frenzy going on around them. The one question that just continues to bounce around in my head, though, is like Richie's dad. So Richie's dad is a cop that changed his name and transferred to the NYPD. That I have questions about how narratively, like what is the process that this family went through to transform from whatever it was they were before Richie became a killer to this like family unit that moved into New York City, changed their names, pretended to be other people, pretended not to know each other. Like, and made it really far without anybody ever figuring any of that shit out. I feel like the story that they didn't tell on screen about Ghostface for this one is a little bit more compelling than the one that they did in terms of Ghostface, the character reveal, the motive. There's so much more behind it that I would have loved to have gotten some taste of.
Yeah, that's probably out of all the films, this one had the most meat to the Scooby-Doo reveal that we didn't get. Because they had a lot of leaps of faith and all that. Like, this really seemed like hatching a plan, like fake lives, not just we're going to lure these people in and there's two of us. There's just like, all right, we're, like you said, we're moving to another city. You have to pretend this is the role you're going to play. And not ever let that slip. So this one is fun for a second viewing. And B-Rose, you were talking about earlier, there's horror movies that are true horror movies that you go watch, but they're an experience, but they're not really fun. Where this I would put in the fun category, right? When we talked about if you like Scooby-Doo, you're going to like Scream. It has that same vibe because there's still a little bit of a mystery to it. So, but this one had the most pieces that had to be put together when you had that Velma moment of just like, that's why you did this. That's why you did that. And like what you said, Mike, that would have been really great to see because you saw Dermot Mulroney really starting to lead into a psychotic side that we only just got a little bit of it at the end. But I really thought, I was like, oh, he's about to come completely unhinged and I'm here for it.
First Scream to have 3 killers.
That was the other
They specifically
right?
call out that there was one Scream that had 1 killer. This is the first to have 3.
Yes.
It's been 2 in all the
and
others.
technically 5, even though one of them is just in the fridge and
Yeah.
it never kills anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you wonder if, again, that would be the whole backstory. Like how many people did they kill to get, they never even got very far.
It's weird because like the whole thing with Scream is it got so over because it was meta about horror movies, slasher movies specifically, right?
Yep.
And the first one referenced all the classics, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. But now we're so deep into this series that it spawned its own movie series from within that now it references.
Yeah, that's all it's referencing.
It barely references Friday. It doesn't talk about Jason anymore. It talks about the stab movies.
Yeah.
Jason was on in Tony Revolori's apartment when he gets home after killing, after after that first the opening murder, he comes back to his house and Jason Takes Manhattan is on the TV. So we do get that little Easter egg.
Yeah, that's obviously a perfect Easter egg for that. It would be great if you're a young actor and you get booked in Screen. That's it. That is the place to go. Because I mean, I loved Mikey Madsen in the last one. I would have loved to seen her come back for sure. But
how about Melissa Barrera as Laura Croft? That's another one.
Oh yeah, that's a really good one.
She's about to be huge. Like I think whatever she could be anything at this point.
Yeah.
I think the rumblings for Jenna Ortega's next big thing is Beetlejuice 2.
Beetlejuice 2 with Jenna Ortega makes perfect sense.
Being Winona Ryder's daughter.
Yeah.
Michael Keaton comes back.
Yep.
Whole ball of wax. She's already working with Tim.
Yeah, get Aubrey Plaza in there to be a heel.
Aubrey could be the person, the Gina Davis character that kind of dies and drives the exposition.
Yeah, the possibilities are endless.
That was announced, I feel like, right after Scream's box office numbers came back, and then they announced the Beetlejuice, going forward. Do you think they already had that kind of queued up? But then they're like, okay, clearly she can hold a network, a streaming show. Can she hold a film? And then when they saw the numbers that had a lot to do with her, they're like, okay, yep, that's a green light. You think they wanted to wait to see how Scream did?
I think they had it queued up.
You think it was ready and they just...
I think they've been trying to make Beetlejuice 2 for a while.
Forever they've been trying to wait
it's like now they've found the perfect replacement for Winona Ryder. So they're going to do it.
But you feel like Winona...
And Radio Silence's next project is Escape from New York, so that's going to be fucking fun.
I'm interested to see what they do with that.
It's going to be Escape from New York? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they have. They've been working on it, and no one's been able to crack that one. Like lots of folks have taken a shot at that one. If it's for me, Radio Silence, if you can tag them in this, Jeff, please, after I say it. I hope that they're going to go ahead and go with Old Man Snake.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
it's got to be Old Man Snake. You can't recast Snake. It's got to be Kurt Russell now, as he is now, doing Once Upon a Time in Hollywood work. Old Man Snake, and maybe he's got young snakes throughout the country. He's been everywhere. Snake's probably got kids everywhere.
Yeah, they could fly on a plane together, and Samuel L. Jackson could pop out.
Yeah.
All these Snake Plisskens on this motherfucking plane.
And that's the ultimate crossover.
I tell you with Melissa Barrera, going back to your little fantasy casting, what I would love to see... And because it's so up in the air, we don't know what they're going to do with it. We know that they're bringing Wolverine back into Deadpool. I would love to see her take on a more adult version of Laura of X-23.
Oh,
that's really good too.
I think she's got the.
I just think she has a look that is castable into anything right now. Yeah. She could, because I don't think she was that great in the first Scream, but this one she killed it in this one.
Yeah,
and now she owns Scream. She is Scream.
Yeah,
and so I think. Whatever she does next could be a huge thing. I think she looks like Wonder Woman. She could be Wonder Woman.
She can totally be Wonder Woman. The Radio Silence guys definitely booked this into where they're not going to be 100% trapped by any character, right? They got Jenna Ortega, but like you said, if Jenna Ortega wasn't in it and you just had Melissa Barrera or vice versa, I think it would work. But I think having them as a tandem, as a duo, and then in the sisters, and then at the end when she's like, whoa, that was kind of like Jenna Ortega, almost being impressed by the way she took her out, and then kind of hinting that she's like, I know you're my sister and I might be okay with your little bit of crazy. I was like, that could be fun. That could be really fun. So
also, they're believable as sisters.
Yeah,
they're very believable as sisters.
They're 100% believable as sisters. Who was?
Yeah, one more fan cast that came to mind. So Mindy, I think Savoy Brown is her last name. I'd like to see her as Squirrel Girl.
Ooh, that's really good booking.
Yeah,
she's got those eyes that can just show that kind of excitement. I think she'd crush it.
I mean, did you see on SNL they had Jenna Ortega and she was kind of dressed up like Rogue?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I could be convinced.
again,
she's just so over. Can we just hijack this for a minute? How over is Jenna Ortega? Every time I open my phone, it just shoots Jenna Ortega videos at me.
That's so true, man. All the YouTube shorts I see are like
single
Jenna
thing
Ortega
is Jenna Ortega.
Jenna Ortega wears a shirt. Like, look at the last 4 months of Jenna Ortega's lunch.
Yeah. It's crazy. She's broken the algorithms. She's overcome everything.
Yeah. I don't know what she's got. I mean, obviously she has Beetlejuice. She has Wednesday. I think that'll bust the internet next time it comes out. But she can pretty much do whatever she wants. She showed that she can carry a show and she can carry a film. So, yeah, I think she's going to have offers being thrown at her left and right. Last spot on Scream. What do you guys want to see next from? Do you want this to be a closed end trilogy, like another standalone trilogy? Or do you want them to find a way to just keep it going, which is tough?
Well, I don't think there's any kind of like Scream trilogies anymore because, like Mike said, the first series is 4 of them.
Yeah.
You know? So I think they're kind of all over the place. Honestly, I would like to see Radio Silence continue and just do something original. I loved the idea of Nev Campbell opening scene death. That's great. But now I've already said it out loud, so it's spoiled. But just keep it fresh. Do something. Do what you did with this one. I thought it worked really well.
Yeah.
I don't really need Nev Campbell to come back, but if she does, I'm great with it. Gail dies or she doesn't, or comes back or doesn't. It doesn't matter because it's all about Jenna Ortega and the core 4.
That core 4 was great. B-Rose, what do you think? What do you want to see next from what would you want to see next from Scream?
Personally, and it's more of just like I think it would be fun to see. I almost want to see a bit of like what I'm going to call a dueling ghost face. I want someone who is so ingrained in like the ghost face in terms of like the horror movies and murders and all that kind of stuff. But then I also want someone else who's like just a generic serial killer who's not getting the fame and recognition, who just co-ops it to get that notoriety, and then you've got 2 of them in it for very different reasons going after each other even.
Oh, Ghostface versus Ghostface? That could be good. That could be really good. Mike B, what do you think? What do you want next from Scream?
So, I mean, what I expect to happen next is that we get a 3rd movie where there is some unknown familial connection revealed, and then we get a 4th movie where someone tries to take the valor of being the final girl from Melissa Barrera, because as much as this was a departure, it was still so deeply related to the narrative structure of the earlier Scream movies. I expect that's what we're going to get. What I would like to see is distributed ghost faces. I think now that we've had a ghost face in Woodsboro in this series, a ghost face in New York, I'd like to see maybe the core 4 split up into 2 different locations. You have maybe 2 of them in one place, to like Chad and Jenna Ortega's character, and then maybe Mindy is there with Melissa Barrera's character. They both are being attacked in different places, and then there's maybe a 3rd place that like Sydney gets attacked in, or some whatever, insert legacy character there. But I'd like to see them expand the scale of the narrative now. It feels like they've expanded the scale of the world in which these stories are taking place by bringing it to the city. That means now there's been Ghostface killings in Woodsboro a few times, wherever that college was that Sydney was going to, in LA and in New York. I think that this movie explored the physical past and of these individual characters that were impacted. I'd like this now to get really big, because if you want to make this a franchise, I mean, do you call it a franchise if you just create sequels endlessly, or is there something else that is required for that franchise turn, where there's spin-offs and like side stories and sub stories that you can build a full world around? That's my main question, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I did like the way they leaned into, now we're talking franchise, and that was her movie diatribe explaining how franchises work.
I would love it if, how many Stab movies is there? 6?
I think they're talking about this one. There was like a stab 8 that everyone was upset.
Yeah, stab 8.
Stab 8. So I hope in the next movie it starts with stab 9. And
right, because in stab 7 started with stab 6 in stab 4.
So it starts with stab 9, but in this one, instead of being like, I think there was one where it's like over the top and the guy has a gold chainsaw. It's just like overly brutal. It's like Terrifier 2, but a version of Scream. And he's just hacking people apart, and people are just you know what I mean? People are just divided over how violent the new stab is. It's like way over the top. And then whatever else happens.
Well, I think interesting too, going back to what Mike said about the whole cult of Ghostface. So if you haven't seen it, there's a really great show that came out a few years ago, and it got 3 seasons, but it kind of deals with something similar. It was called The Following with Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
And part of that is a serial killer who's developed this cult-like following, but he's in prison, and so he's been training his quote-unquote acolytes to take over for him and kill while he's in prison. So, and wearing masks of his face and everything. And so, I'd almost love to see something like that, where you see like these people who've been radicalized, whether it's through online or things like 4chan or Reddit or whatnot. They've been radicalized almost in a Riddler type way from the new Batman. And then I think that'd be a great reveal, is if we show like someone like Stu has been in prison this whole time, kind of like controlling this, or has taken over.
Yep.
Dude, that's exactly, I was going to say that would be my fantasy booking. Is I would want this to tie all the way back to one with Stu, and somehow just tying that all back where somehow if he was somehow the puppet master pulling the strings, keeping this going, I would still love to see that. And then
I think it's going to happen. I think it'll happen.
I mean, I do too, but I just realized as you were saying that, Jeff, we are booking the last movie in the new Star Wars trilogy where Palpatine comes back out of nowhere for no reason.
Somehow Stu has returned.
Yeah, somehow.
Stu is the grandfather. He's Tara's grandfather. That'll be nice, because then you have Sam, who's the daughter of Skeet Ulrich, and then you have Tara, who's like the granddaughter of Stu. That's
right.
Yeah. Because I want that moment at the end of one of these movies where it's like Melissa Barrera's character with Billy Loomis behind her as a Force ghost, and fucking whoever the killer is in that movie with Stu behind them as a Force ghost. So the finale is like Stu Force Ghost versus Billy Force Ghost, the original Ghost Faces.
Dewey as a Force
Ghost Faces. Yeah.
We need the Captain America like Civil War type poster where they're all just kind of facing each other from opposite sides.
That's something different, and that's opening night for me as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think it's all safe to say, like, B-Rose, you liked it. I know, Mike, you liked it. Mario, you were happy with Scream 6. You ready?
Yeah, I thought it was really good.
Yeah. Man, I had no idea. My brain is lost in this radio silent Escape from New York. I just can't. That like totally like now I'm just going down that path. I was just still wrapping my brain around David Gordon Green. Is it David Gordon Green that's tackling The Exorcist next? They're trying to bring that back?
Yeah, it's already shot.
It's already shot?
Yeah, they already shot the first one. Yeah, so they're doing Exorcist. Here's radio silence, if they're listening, which they usually do. If you're doing Escape from New York, just let John Carpenter write the script and then do his script, but do it however you want. You know what I mean? But let him put the beats in there.
Yeah.
And then actually let him write it twice, because John Carpenter is very famous for, he's like, I always write a bad script on the first pass, so I can get paid. So I can get paid to rewrite it. So let him do the second pass, maybe another pass, and I think get a good Escape from New York script out of him.
Pretty awesome that the main antagonists in the Scream series that they're doing have the last name Carpenter, and then he moves on to doing Escape from New York.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
So let's do that, because you're talking about, John Carpenter, who got bad reviews. So we're going to jump into our review segment. Mario, you broke this news to me. It wasn't Twitter, it wasn't Instagram, it was you. Quentin Tarantino announced his last film, his final film.
Well, I don't think he announced it. I think it's leaking.
Oh, yeah, you said it was a leak again. And he hates leaks.
Yeah.
Didn't he have to jump ahead the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood because of the leak?
No, I think that was Hateful Eight. So I don't know how leaks work, if this is one of those strategic leaks where your agent leaks it or whatever. But yeah, it leaked out that his final script is ready to go. And I think he's taken bids on it.
So it's not going to be with Sony?
I think he has a contract with Sony, but he doesn't necessarily have to do it with them.
Really?
Yeah. And it's apparently the premise is about a 1970s film critic.
Yeah, and if you listen,
It's called The Movie Critic.
it's literally called. And I saw somebody who's like, "You better put in the John Lovitz,
John
the critic."
Lovitz, the critic.
Yeah.
It stinks.
Possibly loosely based or actually based on movie critic Pauline Kael.
Is that his like top critic, or is that
I think that's one of his favorite critics in the 70s. He's pretty big.
Yeah,
Dude, he
he
keeps-
really liked her.
So yeah, that information's out there, and I feel like this is a leak that's put out by his PR company to like get bids on it. It's like, okay, who's going to pay me to make this movie?
Yeah.
Because he's also doing a show at the same time. It seems like
Is there going to be a show?
he wrote he announced it on.
Oh,
that
that's
Tom Segura
right,
pod.
that's right.
He
Yeah,
also
that's
wrote. He also wrote a show.
That he's, and that's he only said 10 films, but he didn't say how many shows he can do.
It's exactly right.
So it's he'll be doing some other stuff. I mean, you guys listen to the Video Archives podcast, and you knew how much of a fan he was for films and watching films. I did not know how much of a fan he was for going back to and referencing and remembering film critics, articles about some of his favorite films, to the point where he's imitating their voices. And I was like, that was before the internet. Like, how does he know what they sound like? But then it sounds like he has personal relationships with them after the fact.
Well, you got to consider there was a time when you couldn't just get on the internet and say what you thought about a movie.
No.
And then it just lived there forever. You had to actually be a writer for some sort of periodical, and they'd post your reviews, And
Yeah.
people who were wanting to, talk about movies, that was one of their only outlets, was reading reviews,
Yeah.
But now any of us can just like yell at our phones, and we're movie critics.
And we often do.
Yeah.
But I enjoy when they actually read some of their the film reviews, because we know as times changed, our feelings towards films changed, and some of them age better, some of them age worse. So, but whatever studio needs to pay a lot of money for this, but he almost made it seem like that Once Upon a Time was the main event, and this is going to be like his riding off into the sunset, a little bit cool. Like, it's going to be a little bit more subdued and cooled down. Have you heard that?
Yeah. It's like the epilogue.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to be the epilogue. Does that make you nervous? Although his epilogues are great too, so I don't see like there's going to be any problems.
I think it's going to be great, man. I think he understands exactly what his place in the world is. He always says, and we all know this, every director, they get old and they get out of touch, and their last 5 movies suck. And he wants to get out before he gets to that point. So I think this will probably be like his most divisive movie, maybe. This is the chance to be divisive and go out on it's like the ending of The Sopranos when it just goes dark.
Right.
He can do whatever he wants stylistically and just see how it goes, because he's already so over.
Yeah, when he was on Joe Rogan, he was talking about that. Like, but he's one of the few directors that seems to be getting better. Not that he was ever bad, but he's just getting better and better. And it's just because he loves making movies. Like he says after every one of his shots, when he does that extra take, because he loves making movies, and the homages, like, they've never, to me, detracted from the film experience. I mean, it just goes to show how much of a fan he really is. So I'm really curious where he's going to go with this. But we did a video on this, and apparently we were wrong. I don't think any of us had any guesses that it was going to be about a film critic. What is?
It should have been closer, though. I mean, he's doing nothing but talking about movies at this stage in his career.
Yeah.
What a
last
gig.
movie was about movies. His next movie is about movies.
His podcast is about movies, and
Yeah.
That's why he got famous. He was the video store clerk who became a director. I mean, that's his whole gimmick.
yeah, he's never changed everything. He's he's talking about movies his entire life, and then he just keeps going.
I mean, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was my favorite of any of his work. And part of the reason for that for me is that I feel like in a lot of his earlier stuff, you feel him trying. He's on some level trying to prove himself and show that he can use these tools to craft really great stories. But he's at a point in his career now where he's like, I've proven that I can do all this shit. I don't need to try to do anything for any of you fuckers.
Exactly.
I'm gonna like, I'm just going to go make something. That's
And he can just make a 3-hour movie about two pals hanging out and turn it into just like a genius piece of cinema. It's so good. I never get tired of watching that movie. Every time it's on, I have stars just because they play it on the regular. You know, it's definitely his best movie. And you're right. So everything before that, especially all the way up to the Hateful Eight, where they were screaming at the top of their lungs, feels like trying. And now it's just like he's at the top of his game, master of his craft. He can just make a movie about going to the movies and hanging out. Amazing. And still swerve us. Yeah. Still swerve us. I don't know how you were feeling halfway through Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because we all knew what was coming. We all knew there was going to be some kind of confrontation at the end, right?
Yeah.
Which is like, what's it going to be? How is this going to intersect with the murders? You know? And I thought for a second there, and this would have been maybe Quentin Tarantino years ago, it was going to be, for some reason Bruce Lee is there, and Bruce Lee is going to help divert these murders. I thought that's what was coming. I was like, we're going to have a Kung Fu, Bruce Lee versus the Manson family Kung Fu thing at the end. And it would have been great. It would have been awesome. But no, it was more subdued, but at the same time, lady still got flamethrowed.
Book that crossover comic and I will buy it in a second.
Bruce Lee versus the Manson family. Three comic book series.
Oh man, I would 100% buy that. So, all right, can I slip into intern mode? I don't know if you want to take a break. Mike's got some drink. We got some drink. So I think we need to have a weird beer edition with different drinks that are not beer.
Okay. Oh, we got the drinks. Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll be right back.
All right. BRB.
On all new releases at Rogers Video.
Hi, Video Sam's got exciting news for you. You can now rent a video overnight and hire these great movies from only 99 cents. But the best news is that by purchasing our special package plan, you can have this VCR absolutely free. Ring now, 892-3311 for details of this amazing offer. You could have a video at home tonight. Remember, 892-3311. Video Sam's libraries are convenient to you.
Movie tonight on video. Movie tonight on video.
You can rent a video player, too. There's a store near you, sweetheart.
Movie tonight on video.
They're helpful and friendly with films for the whole family.
Movie tonight on video. Movie tonight on video.
Want a beer? You know, this is really an interesting six-pack. See how it's completely covered? See the ends? Covered. That's so light won't get in. Light can spoil beer. And this is good beer. So they don't want light messing around with it.
Well, in that case, why don't we turn off the lights?
Where are you going? To get a Stroh's. That's about a 200-mile hike through heavy snow. I know. If you think of it, get two. From one beer lover to another's Stroh's.
I don't know what to do. What would you do if you were me? America's got this beer. It's called Stroh's Light, and it's fire brewed. You know, it's not like any other beer. So I call the State Department and say, let's make a trade. Our cigars for your Stroh's Light. They say, Fidel, you're going to have to forget about it.
It's not the same as other lights. It's fire brewed Stroh's Light.
We're only 90 miles away. We can't even get a decent beer.
I have it on mute over there, but I can still hear Fidel. Why you not give us the Stroh's, Fidel?
We can't even get a decent beer.
Fidel, you're gonna have to forget about it. Pops in my head like randomly. All right, so our go home spot, we got a little combination. So we're gonna wet our whistle, and we're gonna be talking about some stuff. So, Mike, you're on the Pacific Northwest. You got a different drink. So as our remote guest, I'm gonna let you go first.
Wait, is this our official segment?
Yeah, this is the official. There we go.
It's not non-beer edition.
Weird beer, non-beer edition. That's perfect. So we got some different drinks. Some may have a ton of sugar. Some may have no sugar. So Mike, if you want to start off first, go ahead. You have the floor. You have the comments.
All right. So I have a selection of Prime, the beverage that Logan Paul and KSI do together. So I'm going to start off with the Ice Pop Prime here. I'm also going to be trying the Tropical Punch and the Grape Primes.
Are these energy-filled drinks?
So they're hydration beverages. It's called a hydration drink. They have 20 calories. They have how much sugar? 2 grams of sugar total. But then they also have like 100% vitamin A, 100% vitamin E, 200% vitamin B3, 200% vitamin B12, and then some other things mixed in. I've had them before. The best way that I can describe them is that if you take the the taurine and the extreme levels of caffeine out of an energy drink, that's kind of what this tastes like. It's very sweet for having 2 grams of sugar.
That sounds really good, actually. That sounds like a very healthy alternative of a drink to drink.
And I had no idea.
Get you rolling. Like day after having a couple of weird beers, you drink a Prime in the morning, and you are like amped up on all that vitamin.
I love it.
Yeah.
And I love like the bottle looks like a bomb pop.
Yep, we got the bomb pop here. I mean, it's really it's great. The grape, the orange here.
Yeah.
And then the other one that I have here that I've tried previously is Meadow Moon.
Now, are you going to drink all of these, or you're going to taste them?
I'm just going to take a little sip while we're kind of doing the beverage here and call out anything that stands out to me about the individual flavors, whether they're good or bad. So I'll just kind of be passively weaving throughout what you guys are drinking.
Okay.
I am really.
Jeff, get that on the close-up.
Yeah, I'm gonna get this on the close-up. I'm really curious about the Meta Moon face or whatever the Meta Moon one. That'll be really good. But we have something completely different. This is from our friends from a little company called PepsiCo.
Tiny independent soda company.
Yes, this independent soda
I think
company.
they also own a fried chicken restaurant.
Yeah, they may, and some tacos. But check this out. Not Pepsi. We're talking Peepsy. Peepsy. So this came from RJ. Thank you for Honda. I was telling them earlier, like somebody introduces a new drink and you're going to find it. When you will hunt it, you are definitely like Liam Neeson. You call stores. You have a particular set of skills. So I don't know if you guys are fans of Peeps. I don't know if I like Peeps, but I like Peeps flavored, similar to the candy corn experience. I don't know if I like candy corn, but I like candy corn flavored chocolate. So
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so we're gonna crack into this Peepsy. It's Pepsi meets Peeps. We'll get a pop on the pop filter.
So this is a marshmallow chicken in each can, right?
It's definitely marshmallow. It is a 100 calories. Pretty.
You can smell it.
Yeah, it smells like Peeps juice.
Now,
while you guys are taking that first sip, so I had the ice pop one here. Kind of tastes like the white flavor of Gatorade that has that like cherry flavor, but
yes,
but with a Ghostface Gatorade.
Gatorade Ghostface, yeah.
But with a little bit, like the aftertaste has a little something that's a bit more complex, and it's probably because the flavor's not coming from high fructose corn syrup; it's coming from something else.
I mean, again, that just sounds like a healthy option to marshmallow chicken soda. But like,
and how is the marshmallow chicken soda?
Now I tell you, my opinion of this is probably skewed because I love nothing more in the world than sugar soda. It is just it's a thing I have to just you have to avoid on purpose, right? Love sugar soda. This is pretty good. It tastes like a marshmallow Pepsi, maybe a little bit like a vanilla Pepsi. It's got, but I feel like I can taste the skin of the Peep. You know, the Peeps have that different colored skin. I feel like it's in there.
Yeah, there's a little. Let me do it again.
It's got a little bit of a. You can taste the marshmallow, but it's almost like a mixture of like marshmallow with a little bit of like maybe cream soda.
Yeah, exactly.
And medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely some kind of medicine.
It's like someone threw a lot of marshmallow flavoring into cough syrup so that you could tolerate it more.
Yeah.
This is it definitely has a medicine vibe to it.
Tropical Punch kind of tastes like Hawaiian Punch, which is insane because there's 2 grams of sugar and Hawaiian Punch is just basically sugar.
Exactly. All right. While we're doing this real quick, while we're reeving in the drinks, can we talk about the Oscars for a minute?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about sugar, yeah.
Talking about the Oscars, I thought overall it was a good show. Nobody got punched, which I don't know if that's good or bad, whether it helped or it didn't. But it seemed for the first time, and as long as I can remember, the Oscars were kind of good.
It felt like the Oscars went back to, before the world fell apart. This felt like old Oscars.
Yeah.
Before, there's no mixing up of the envelopes, nobody getting slapped. It felt like Hollywood was trying to pretend nothing else was going on in the world, and this was their party again to celebrate it.
And everything, everywhere, all at once, winning everything,
everywhere, all
at once, just feels right. And you can't deny the feel good moments for Brendan Fraser and Ke Huy Quan.
No,
it feels like this could be one of the last Oscars where you have those kinds of like throwback talents that are getting an unexpected reward after a long career that didn't come up through Disney or Nickelodeon or any of these like production management channels. They just kind of grinded and had a very unique path that was near and dear to like so many people's hearts.
I tell you, man, if you ever you can't doubt that this isn't a simulation and we're not living in a matrix. You can't, because that going back and seeing the 2 scenes was with Brendan Fraser and Ke Huy, was that in being together in Encino Man and just having that face-to-face dialogue there. And then that night they're like, hey, it's us again. I don't know. I know it's Hollywood and everybody makes movies, but that just felt too booked. That felt way booked.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about like worked in Hollywood. I'm talking about worked in This Is a Matrix way, because that was just way too perfect of a callback, but not as good as the callback of seeing him hug and kiss Harrison Ford so genuinely, of like just him being so happy. He is now what Tom Hanks used to be to Hollywood. Protect Ke Huy Quan at all costs.
Yeah,
at all costs.
That is so true.
He's a treasure. He's just so genuine, and just now you thinking back, that came across. That's why he was so popular in Goonies and as Short Round in Indiana Jones. He somehow managed to stay that way to a point where just a few months before this movie starts hitting, he was about to lose his health benefits because he wasn't getting any work.
Yeah. It's enhanced by the fact the whole Ke Huy Quan story is enhanced by the fact that Chunk is his agent.
Yeah. I mean, so
he was trying to get back into acting, and he called Chunk, and he was like, "I heard you're an entertainment lawyer now. I'd like to
Chuck
get back
was like,
into
do the truffle shuffle, and I'll book you in a movie." I feel like at this stage now, he is so over universally that Disney could come out with Short Round the movie. You could make Data the movie as like, so you're not making Goonies 2, you're just making a thing about Data, right? Like anything that he's ever done in those early career roles, you could just make him the star of the movie and people would go see
anything, any of Data's over.
Anything.
Yeah, for sure. Data, I think that you make Data the focus of the new Goonies movie.
How dope.
Data and Sean Astin are still neighbors or something, you know?
Yeah, and then their kids are the new Goonies. Yeah, that writes itself.
It opens up a lot.
They're getting foreclosed because of the bank collapse or something.
Which, very, very timely. What about do you think the Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny film team is kicking themselves in the butt now that they didn't somehow find a way to put Short Round back in there?
They're gonna fucking post-credit. They gotta post-credit him. Like, there's no way.
It's very easy.
You get him in the movie.
They don't have to do much.
Yeah, I want to see the whole. But you're right. You want to keep this franchise going. You have that Short Round spinoff, and you're good for a minimum a trilogy of hit movies. I hear you like money, then get Short Round the movies.
Short Round the series would be great.
Short Round the series,
old too? Short Round Chronicles.
Oh man, yeah, exactly. It's just his chronicles. But the other,
and he could interact with a number of different Indiana Jones type heroes, right? Like Short Round is just perennially the guy that's there helping like superheroes do shit. So every episode you're getting like, here's Indiana Jones, here's Kansas Brown, here's Montana Davy.
I can't take credit for somebody was pitching this on a podcast earlier, and if I can remember what it was, I'd credit it. But they were pitching Short Round the series where he's like an Indiana Jones character, but he's putting all the artifacts back that from the museum, and he's stealing stuff from museums to put it back where they came from. I was like, that's a great idea.
That is so dope. That is a perfect idea.
Like he puts something down on a pillar and a big ball rolls out to attack him. Oh shit, I'm bringing it back to you guys.
Stealing stuff from like the British museums to return them from wherever they raided them from.
Oh man, he's gonna. I think the success he's gonna have is gonna be so awesome because he deserves it. I mean, he suffered for his art, and just having him cry about fighting for your dream, and it was such a genuine place. Man, it was good. It made to me like everyone's like the Oscars is just like, oh, that's just kind of actors getting each other off. It's not that big of a deal. But then you get a moment like that to show how much it really truly does mean to somebody who gave their entire life to art to try to entertain people and fulfill their dreams. To get that award, he deserved it.
What about MCU roles for Brendan Fraser and Ke Huy Quan?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a slam dunk because Brendan Fraser was already. I know Doom Patrol, I think, got canceled, but he was one of the. He was one of the bright spots of that show.
He was also Firefly in the canceled Batgirl movie. He was the main villain in that one.
Oh, he was?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
He's definitely.
I'd like to. Yeah.
He's going to book something huge next. Something huge.
Well, Mario's already
Put him in a Star Wars. Why can't Brendan Fraser be in a Star Wars?
Yeah.
He could be on Mandalorian.
Put him in a Star
What franchise would Ke Huy Quan fit the best in?
One
Mission Impossible.
Oh, Mission Impossible
Put him in
could
Mission
be a good
Impossible.
one.
Yeah.
He could.
Yeah, Mission.
He would just be a lovely little foil, like a heart next to the robot that is Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Now I'm starting to wonder, just really test his acting range, because we know he could be the hero, right? Because he was the hero in everywhere. And what about as a heel? Like what good role can you see him as the foil?
Can't do it. He's too over right now.
He's too popular. Is that the Tom Hanks heel thing? It won't work.
Yeah.
He could do something like a Skrull, or like someone that is impersonating other people, so that there's some sort of like two-faced aspect to him, because the dynamic role that he played in Everything Everywhere All at Once shows that he can play these distinct characters that are just a facial expression away from each other. So I could see him in that kind of, role, but he's not a Doctor Doom. He's kind of like He Who Remains kind of character.
Oh, yeah.
He could be one of those cosmic entities that's just having fun with the world.
Yeah, something that's part of a council, right?
I tell you what might work, because if we're likely not to ever get the rights to do a movie, is have him do Amadeus Cho and tie in with the Hulk.
Oh yeah,
that would be sweet.
That's part of Hulk. Well, they might be getting Hulk back, right? They're going to trade Hulu for Hulk, like baseball
Hulu
cards.
for Hulk.
Hulu.
Yeah,
for
that
Hulk.
was the word. That was the word. The other thing, in the DC side of the world, I think Ke Huy Quan could put a really interesting spin on Mr. Mxyzptlk.
Oh, Mxyzptlk.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yes, James Gunn. Listen up.
Popping in, just like smiling on people's shoulders.
Yeah, he would be perfect. That's booking, man. That's thinking, because he doesn't have to be like, we grew up with the Larry David looking Mxyzptlk. It doesn't have to be that. It could be Ke Huy Quan. I think that would be totally good. On the other side of the Oscar, for the four, how did you guys? I think again, it was awesome for us to be fans of genre 80s films, to see Jamie Lee Curtis and Michelle Yeoh get their deserved as well. I know there was a little bit of people that had a little bit of heat of Jamie Lee winning that, but I mean, family and legacy, and you can call, she's been around for a long time, and she's done a lot of stuff, from Halloween to Dancing on Poles for James Cameron. She did a lot to get to this point. So to me, I was like, look at where she came from to how long it took her to win Oscar. And I don't know if Janet Leigh or Tony, they both were nominated. I don't know if either one of them won. But I don't know. It felt like, to me...
No, they both... She said in her speech that both her parents were nominated but never won.
To me, it's just like, that's a cool Hollywood story.
Yeah.
As a parent, I know that they would be like, if they had to choose, they'd want their kid to get it even over them. So I thought that was a nice story. And again, just because we love Halloween and we love Terror Train and all the stuff that she did entertain us, so have to do something completely different like this, I thought it was awesome.
I feel like that spot got a lot of heat on the Twitter and on the internet and all those where people drop their comments. But I mean, in the end, I understand when people are upset, and I think Angela Bassett was her fans were upset that she didn't win for Black Panther. She was great in it.
She was awesome in it.
She was awesome in it, like fantastic. So was Stephanie Hu from all the other actors from Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah.
Everybody was really good. But like, here's the thing in the end, and you got to tell this to the folks at home who think Oscars is a real thing. It's a show. It's just a show. It's a pay-per-view. It's Hollywood's pay-per-view. And they put on the object of the game is to put on a good show. And who's the best story? Ke Huy Quan, that was a great story. Jamie Lee Curtis winning is a great story, and that's why she got the award.
Yeah,
that's just how it works out.
Well, I think if you look at both her performance and Angela Bassett's performance, both were just utterly fantastic.
Yeah,
but they both had, or not they both, but Jamie Lee had something going for her, and Angela Bassett had something going against her. So I think if Jamie Lee Curtis does that type of performance in a different movie, Maybe she wins, maybe she doesn't. She at least gets nominated, but she may not have won. But I think the clout that Everything Everywhere had already, being such a spectacular film, kind of helped boost that.
Yeah.
If Angela Bassett turns in that performance in anything other than a Marvel film, she automatically wins.
Yeah.
But I think that she's in a Marvel film, and they're never going to take that seriously.
Yeah.
And so I think that almost hindered her in a way, because she was fantastic, but she was also fantastic in a Marvel film, and that's always going to have that kind of stigma behind it.
100%. And I think also Everything Everywhere All at Once was such a unique movie experience for the year that it elevated everybody. That's why Ki Hoi Kwan and Michelle Yeoh won the Oscars, is because that film really elevated them to a level that they could not achieve in another movie. If Angela Bassett was in Michelle's role in Everything Everywhere All at Once, she would have won the Oscar too.
Very
You
true.
know?
Right.
It was just that movie.
We
was
are now.
So
we are now in a universe with hot dog fingers. There are hot dog fingers in our universe now.
It's
there
gonna
will
be
be
referenced forever. Yeah.
forever.
And I think that's one of the reasons why the Oscars did so well this year, is for the first time in a while, one of the premiere movies was actually a movie that wasn't just receiving acclaim. It was receiving acclaim, but it was also thought of as cool by the general populace, even if they didn't understand it. It was still visually and story-wise a cool movie. And so when you put something like that and it gets that kind of acclaim, obviously you're going to get more viewers and whatnot as well.
And it's the Academy is notorious for not giving the award to the cool movie.
That's true.
In another universe, in an alternate timeline, The Fabelmans wins. You know?
Oh, totally.
The Fabelman just swoops in and takes it, because that's just how the world works, buddy-o.
That's right.
You know?
But now we're in the world where the Daniels are battling each other to shove the Oscar up their ass so they can take the power of Hollywood and continue the fight, right?
Yeah. Spielberg's last movie was West Side Story, and like the Daniels' last movie was about a farting Harry Potter corpse. And so things have changed.
Both very similar to each other.
Yeah. West Side Story remake or farting corpse. Which one leads to Oscar? But I mean, I just think that's where, and it's cool that they're reward in this universe. Pulp Fiction also won in '94 over Forrest Gump. You know what I mean? And they're doing that now, and that's great. I don't know. I didn't see The Fabelmans. I'll probably catch it at some point. I watched some of All Quiet in the Western Front, and I thought it was great. I just haven't gone back to watch the rest of it. But I just seemed predetermined that this was the year of Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Ironically.
It's advantageous for the Academy to glom as many awards to a single property as possible, particularly when that property is an original IP that is just being introduced for the first time. There's so much that's going to do for those directors, for those actors, but also potentially for original IP-based stories that are coming out that are a little bit like this, that might get a little bit of a wider distribution, might have the person take the gamble on them that they wouldn't have taken a year ago, because everything is IP all at once.
Yeah.
And it was, and a very juicy topic for a movie. But you're right. Like Fabelmans, if this was the 80s, they would have probably won.
Yeah.
That would have been the stuff, right? Gandhi beat E.T. I mean, that's just like, well, that's when it used to be, well, what really garners a best
I like
picture?
that visual.
Gandhi beat E.T. I'm going to break your neck.
Get out of here.
You see that on a poster, Gandhi versus E.T.
E.T.'s phoning for help.
That's right.
And it's like the Gandhi from UHF.
Yes. What about Michelle? Do you guys realize she's 60 years old?
Yeah, and she's never trained in martial arts.
It's some Jackie stuff Jackie Chan showed her on Police Story.
She was a dancer, and she can just emulate the moves.
It was some dancing that she did, man. Yeah. So again, I was very happy with her winning as well. I think it was a good night for the fan favorites, because again, our fan favorite is what was RR going to do? The only thing they were nominated for was the music and the song, and I got a little nervous when they were really good dancers, but it paled into comparison to what the film actually experienced, and they still got a big standing ovation. But then I saw Lady Gaga come out and get all dramatic, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
they might lose. So it was very cool to see.
I love that we can talk about the Oscars like it's pro wrestling.
I know.
We're just so totally convinced. Like it's not all predetermined.
I know. I was like, oh no, here it goes.
Votes are all in, but Lady Gaga comes and kills it at the last moment. She runs in the ring.
Do a run in.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, that's what I'm saying. It's a show, and they actually did the show well this year. I think it worked out good. I was entertained all the way through. I'd like to see, I think, less ads, less how great are the movies, and just let the people talk. I think that'd be better. Just let folks talk. You know, that's more interesting.
Yeah.
We don't need to see ads for The Little Mermaid. Why? On the Oscar show.
Is there one award that you think, oh yeah, they nailed that, but if they had picked someone else, I would have been really, really happy with that?
Let me think. I'm trying to think of what.
Like me personally, I love Brendan Fraser. He's one of he's been one of my favorites, and like now that everyone's hooked on The Whale, I've been trying to get as many people to watch With Honors as I can, because it's probably one of
those. Oh fuck yeah, baby! I love With Honors.
Such a great movie.
Fucking
but
slaps.
If he didn't win, I would have been 100% okay with, even though I don't think the movie is as strong. I thought Austin Butler just killed it as Elvis. I thought he would have been a great second choice.
I think so too. I think he would have been a great. I think he was probably between him and Brendan Fraser, he would have been the other choice. He did great in the movie, but again, the Oscars is a lifetime achievement award kind of show, and Austin Butler's new. He's fresh. He'll have another chance when whatever he goes on to do.
Next time he gets possessed by a dead biopic star.
20 years from now, he's doing the Neil Diamond story, and when he wins that Oscar,
channeling Lou Reed.
That makes me think about Behind the Candelabra when Michael Douglas plays Liberace.
Exactly. He'll get his Oscar eventually, not this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, his
sidekick in that movie is called Scott. So anytime that I've ever watched an Ant-Man movie and he goes, Scott, and it sounds exactly the same as when he's like calling over Scott in the Liberace movie. So I always have this internal visual that like Liberace is the mentor to Ant-Man. Come on, Scott. Scott.
Oh man! And one last thing, they did make fun of Will Smith, but his name was banned too, right? He became He Who Should Not Be Named, but they called him like Fresh Prince. They called him Hitch, but they never came out and said his name. Did you guys?
I think they even threw in a Voldemort.
Yeah, they did Voldemort.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is going to be a tough Hollywood jail to get out of for him, right? What is he?
I mean, we'll see. I think that I think right now he's probably really he's in cell block 99 of Hollywood jail because Chris Rock just did his special. I think the reviews were mixed, but it still got over. People were waiting for that, and now Will Smith is just like making Bad Boys 4. So
I saw that.
Got that going for me.
Hollywood has also had a very short attention span. Hopefully
he'll be back. He'll be back.
Going forward, we've made some progress, but
yeah,
we're still talking about a group that gave Roman Polanski an Oscar.
Yeah,
after all the horrible things he did.
That's true.
And Woody Allen, and name a million people that are deplorable in so many ways.
He'll be back.
But
Hollywood
he has
loves
a production company.
Yeah,
he's still a producer. He's a producer on the Cobra Kai series.
Yeah, he owns the Karate Kid.
Yeah, like come on, like he's gonna be fine.
He's fine. He's fine.
He'll get like a Blue Table Talk podcast, and we'll be seeing him on his own self-distributed channels. That's it. That
100%.
People like that don't go away.
I agree. Do a combo podcast: Red versus Blue. Jada on one side, Will on one.
Yeah,
I just
the
don't
crossover event, like the SummerSlam podcast.
But they were just, I couldn't help that, it was the timing of it all, right? That Chris Rock's special dropped right around the Oscars, right around the time that Will Smith dropped, hey, Bad Boys 4. Do we want to see Bad Boys 4?
No.
I don't think
I didn't see Bad Boys 3.
Yeah. Bad Boys 3 only got over because it was in the middle of a global pandemic.
Yeah, so. If you go, if you mark out for the box office mojo.com and you go for the all times, Bad Boys is on there because there was no movie that was released after that. It came out in January and the world shut down right around the end of February. There was no big movies. So it'll forever like, oh, Bad Boys was.
It was like the biggest movie of the year, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the biggest movie of the year, and it was just
So-
like, and it barely. I don't even know if it cracked 200 million, but
I think
yeah.
I'd much rather see the sequel that Parks and Rec posited, Hitch 2, Son of a Hitch, with Jaden Smith. I'd rather see that.
The one Will Smith movie I would watch would be if it was written and directed by the people who did The Unbearable, the Nick Cage movie. And the premise of the movie that Will Smith is in is the opening scene is the slap, and then we enter a fictionalized universe where Will Smith is dealing with all of the ramifications and outputs of that, but it's just much more, kind of insane than anything reality, kind of metaphysical, and it helps us to rewrite the perception of him. Because I'm not going to go to like another sci-fi thing. Like, I'm just not interested in.
Dude, why don't you have your own studio? I think you if Will Smith is watching this, you may have just fixed his career.
I think
No,
that's
just
great.
tag Radio. Like Radio Silence will call Will Smith because they're still watching.
I'd like to hop onto this pitch and tag on. I love that. It kicks off right after the slap, and then it just takes place all in one continuous shot after that. And do we see the aftermath,
A little bit of Curb Your
So
Enthusiasm
like the
with
opening
Birdman.
scene, the opening credits are when he's dancing, getting jiggy with it, the after party,
after parties.
and then the one shot starts like right after the thing that we have
Right,
any
like he
media about.
passes out hammered after the Oscars and wakes up, and then it's like, oh man, I just slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars last night.
Yeah.
What's gonna happen now?
Yeah,
that'd be great.
They did announce I Am Legend 2 with Michael B. Jordan and Will Smith. Did you hear
And
that?
Will Smith. I thought just
Yeah.
Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah, they're going to go back to the ending that they didn't use in the first film and make that canon and deal with that going forward is what the premise is.
Yeah, and I thought that was exactly. I was like, wait, why are you going to redo the ending there? So I did like that movie.
Yeah, well, the ending they deleted was the better ending.
Look, if I'm Will Smith's agent right now, the only move for Will Smith to do right now is to go turn heel. He needs to play a heel in the movie. He's never done it. It's time to do it,
True.
man. Turn heel.
Okay. How about Gemini Man 2? There's 4 Will Smiths now.
and they're all bad.
Yeah.
4 bad Will Smiths, each bad in its own way, or just something like that. Like I feel like if he was in Fast and the Furious 11 or something as the main heel.
Ooh, that's great,
That
right?
could be
Like
good.
that's a way I would go watch Will Smith in a stupid Fast and the Furious movie.
And he's finally the
Yes.
ultimate heel, the guy, the mastermind behind everything.
I don't know. The following up Momoa, though, for this one's going to be a tough sell, though.
Yeah.
Momoa's tough.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be tough.
But I think Will Smith is a level up from Momoa. He's a bigger star. He's in the dumps right now, but he's huge.
Well, that's one of the things, too. It's not like a lot of the other people who've kind of fallen from grace. Granted, he still did something bad, but, like, he's still a talented person.
Yeah.
And so I think that his act wasn't as severe that he's not Kevin Spacey, who was talented and we found out was doing things awful this whole time. I think that having something like that, you have someone who's talented who he didn't kill anybody, he did something awful. So I think there's a redemption in there if he tries and does it the right way. But he's still talented enough to where he's still going to draw a crowd.
Yeah. And maybe that crowd is going to be in Independence Day 3.
Independence Day 3, JJ says that's a great pitch.
he's
Comes
revived.
back as a bad guy.
Revived by the aliens, and now he's working for them. Give him like a Mars
like that.
attack helmet.
He's working with the alien queen as the Fresh Prince. Boom. There's the movie.
That's the mic drop on the show too.
Put him in Men in Black, the new Men in Black as a heel. He could do that.
Oh yeah,
it could be any number of things, but I think that's where he's got to go.
Could be wearing a Will Smith suit, desiring sugar water. Sugar water.
Also, right now might be a good time to go ahead and cut another rap album. Like an old school, reconnect with Jazzy Jeff.
Oh yeah,
cut a
baby.
rap album about some stories. You know what I mean?
Could
You
do
can
that.
call it The Pursuit
But
of Happiness and
curse
spell
all
it wrong again.
over it.
Yeah. Something about Southern California. I went to a show.
Are they going to bring back battle raps, right? Because then maybe he can answer Chris Rock's with the rap. Could they do that? Didn't they used to just have those battle raps? Maybe bring that back. That could be a thing.
The way that Chris Rock has handled this by not addressing it in just a regular interview, doing it in a stand-up special, really kind of like drawing the lines and controlling the narrative after the fact, I think makes it a lot harder for Will Smith to come back.
Yeah.
If Will Smith could just do some media spots with Chris Rock and they play buddy-buddy for a while, no one would even remember this in a year.
That's
but
true.
because Chris is taking this high road, seems really hard.
Yeah.
Did you guys? I haven't finished watching it. I watched the first few minutes. So far,
I only watched the Chris Rock stuff, the Will Smith stuff.
The Answer.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit. It wasn't. He could have went a lot further with it.
It was a lot tamer than he could have. He's verbally destroyed some people in the past, and he didn't let him off easy. But he could have gone much harder had he wanted to.
Yeah.
Let him off easy, but he.
And they were friends too, right? So there's got to. You think he's pulling his punch a little bit, knowing?
No, I don't think that. I think he understands that he's got a little bit of leeway that he can get away with in terms of what he can say, and that if he goes too far, he becomes the bully, even though it's something that happened to him. So I think he was smart by, touching on it but not dwelling on it.
Yeah. And now they're both ready to put it behind them. But I don't think it's people are just going to forget without something else happening to make people start to forget. Or you're going to have to just put on the fat producer suit and do a dance.
Yeah. Will Smith just feels like a bitch to me now, though. And I don't know that there's anything that he can do that will change that. It's just difficult to look at him and not see like a little fucking whiny crybaby ass bitch that can't control their emotions and is probably surrounded by millions of yes people with lots and lots of money, and that Will Smith at one point was a personality that was magnetic and strong, and now he's kind of in an echo chamber, just like the same kind of stuff you get from the political sort of things. And I'm not interested. And there's so many great actors now.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, and
give Jonathan Majors all of Will Smith's roles moving forward.
Will Smith was not. I mean, he's not that caliber of actor. He's a personality. He's a movie star. He was always Will Smith, right? I mean, I know that
he does. He has so many Oscar bait movies, dude.
They're Oscar bait. They're Oscar bait movies.
Happiness.
But it's always Will Smith as that character. I don't think he really disappears into roles like that.
Yeah, that is fair.
Yeah, that's true. Cool. All right. I know we went a little long. We missed Ted, but we got some more episodes coming, so maybe you guys can come back and we can talk about Ted Lasso.
Shit.
We went. But
I gotta watch it. Let's come back and talk about the
first
episodes.
exactly. We haven't seen it. And we had to address the Oscars because, like Mario said, I, for the first time in a long time, turned off the Oscars and felt pretty good about the state of Hollywood and movies. And I do feel like it's starting to change. It's subtle, but it's changed. I know people think that Hollywood lives in their own little la la land, but I turned it off feeling pretty good because of Key Boy. And it's just like that can't be a bad thing. So
Roger that.
Yeah. I don't know what else we want to drop it on. What do we want to drop it on? Pepsi? Cheers. You guys want to just do a cheers?
Yeah, let's cheers.
All right, cheers to Prime and no sugar and all the sugar coming together.
Full sugar.
This one tastes like Pez.
Pez means
Pez and Peeps.
Pez and Peeps
Yep.
unite.
There's an actual marshmallow in there.